Check, mic check. Check. Check, mic check. 1, 2, 3. Check, 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 check. Check, check.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I request you to take the seats, please? May I request our guests to take the seats, please? We are about to start the program. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are starting with the program. May I request you to take your seats, please? A warm welcome to EMA's Annual Convention 2022 based on the theme Electricity to Energy Vision 2047. After a gap of 2 years of COVID and lockdown period, we are extremely happy to welcome you all to the annual convention of IMA. May I request our guest, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Group Executive President, Corporate Strategy and BD, Aditya Birla Group, Mr. Sambit Patra, Partner, Bain Consultants, IMA President, Mr. Vipul Ray, President-elect, Mr. Rohit Pathak, and IMA Director General, Charu Mathur, to come near the dais and light the auspicious lamp, please. वक्रतुंड महाकायं सूर्यकोटि समप्रभं निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं गौरीपुत्रं विनायकं भक्तावासं स्मरे नित्यं आयुः कामार्थसिद्धये. Thank you so much. I would now request the dignitaries to take the dais, please. I would now hand over this session to IMA Director General, Ms. Charu Mathur. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to Bombay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the annual general meeting and annual convention of IMA. I think we are holding this in a physical format after a gap of, well, calendar 3 years, but there's a gap of 2 AGMs that we've held virtually. So welcome, and I think Bombay is always a very, very nice and welcoming city. I'll just quickly take you through the flow of the day. We have 3 sessions here in the public session. The first session is really a trend session where our speakers, Mr. Shiv Kumar and Mr. Sambit Patra, will take us through various trends and opportunities for 2030. The second session is a session on green hydrogen, which is the buzzword these days, with the government of India putting its might and policy support behind it. So that's a session where we have eminent panelists from EY, Larsen & Toubro, Reliance, Tata Power, and Government of Kerala. The session has been crafted by our partners EY. The next session is really a perspective on how the new energy trend and the new energy transition in India is impacting. We have our own Mr. Mustafa Wajid to give us a context, and we will also have a gentleman from CESL talk about what they are doing in this field. Post that, the pride and passion of IMA, Chairman Electrama is here. We'll just like to brief you all on the updates of Electrama. With that, I will quickly start this session. Our first speaker here today is Mr. Shiv Kumar. Shiv, as he's popularly known, is currently the Group Executive President at Aditya Birla Group for Strategy and Business Development. Prior to this, and he's a well-known figure in the FMCG world, I've known him or seen him in his FMCG avatar, where he was chairman and CEO for PepsiCo for 4 years, and before that, Nokia, and later emerging markets for nearly a decade. He's been a CEO, I think, half his career, and I think you were one of the youngest CEOs at one point of time in India. Shiv writes and teaches regularly on innovation, leadership, followership, business model, digitization. And I understand that for today's session, he has crafted his thoughts specifically and specially in this session, looking at the mix of audience that we have here. I also believe that you are an avid fan of Manchester United. Okay. And I'm sure Shiv was glued to the TV when Roger Federer was just, demitting office, so to speak. So Shiv is a believer in giving back to society and has been on various boards and has won many accolades throughout his career. And we are very lucky to have him. Sambit Patra, partner with Bains & Company, leader of performance improvement in India, and active member of the Global Advanced Manufacturing and Services and Energy and Natural Resources Practices. More than 10 years of experience, and Bain & Company have recently come out with a very well thought and researched presentation on various trends, and Sambit has very nicely culled out a section on our industry segment which he is going to present today. With that, I'm going to just request Mr. Vipul Ray, our president, to quickly welcome and give his opening remarks, and then we'll start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Charu. Mr. Shiv Kumar, Group Executive, President, Corporate Strategy and Business Development, Aditya Birla Group. Mr. Sambit Patra, Partner, Bain & Company. My colleague, Rohit. Charu Mathur, Director General, EMA. Past presidents, members of the National Executive Council, EMA members, colleagues from industry, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. What a fantastic and warm feeling getting back to the in-person gathering for the annual general convention and annual general meeting after a gap of 2 years. It is my privilege to welcome you all to the 75th annual convention of EMA. It is very heartening to see you all, and I thank you all for joining with us today. 75 years of service to the nation, co-running with the country's independence. It's a huge honor to be contributing to nation building in such a tandem. It was a year that had offshoots of devastation and was conquered by resilience, where the human spirit withstood and ignited the collective consciousness towards life itself. Already, there are high points to cheer for. India has the highest economic growth. We are the world's 5th largest economy, having just surpassed UK. We have embarked on the Amrit Kal period to redefine the nation in the next 25 years as we count down to India at 2047. The electrical and the allied electrical equipment industry is poised to play the role of a catalyst for the game-changing shift towards clean energy, where electricity will be the energy. The Honorable Prime Minister pledged during COP26 summit that the country will achieve net zero by 2070. We have the goal to transform into an energy-independent nation by 2047, decrease dependence on imports, make India a manufacturing hub. We, the Indian electrical equipment industry and EMA members, are committed to contribute to this vision of Honorable Prime Minister, which is why we committed to drive this change within EMA and has consciously moved our membership towards being an integral part of the energy transition. All our activities in the last years have been with this eye to the goal. Of course, enhancing business development for our membership as well. As I stand here, and begin to encapsulate the happening of the last year, I look back with humility. I'm pleased to share that EMA continued to engage constructively with the government, and the association is now increasingly recognized as the first point of contact for pertaining to power and electrical equipment industry. We continued our public policy agenda, and I'm humbled to share that we have achieved several outcomes. To count a few, and these are on the slide, QCBS was introduced, PLI schemes introduced for semiconductor chips and CRGO, surety bonds introduced in place of performance bank guarantees, extension and reduction of percentage of performance bank guarantees. Interactions with ministers and secretaries of Government of India on various subjects have been regular. EMA has been asking the government in smart negotiation FTAs, and we are now part of these discussions regularly, Australia, UK being the latest ones. We pushed the demand for bilateral recognition of CPRI testing, and government has moved on it. I was asked by Secretary Power to submit details, basis which our Indian missions abroad have taken up the matter. On several occasions, EMA has had the privilege to meet Honorable Minister of Power Shri R.K. Singh, Secretary Minister of Power Shri Alok Kumar, and many other senior officials from Commerce Ministry, Finance Ministry, to discuss the issues concerning our industry, especially our sector. This reached a high when Honorable Minister of Power launched the dates of what is the pride and passion of EMA, our own Electrama. This was also in the presence of Secretary of Power Shri Alok Kumar. I'll let you hear the video for this.
Let me begin by congratulating you on the announcement of Electrama 2023. You are actually my family. This industry is our industry. And in our industry, for the past 5-6 years, we've brought about a huge transformation.
The Honorable Minister emphasized that India, thanks to its ongoing energy transition, will be the biggest market in the world for electrical equipment by 2030. Just a week before last, we had a very cordial meeting with him, where he has accepted to be a patron for Electrama and invite his counterparts from other countries to Electrama. This certainly is a first for all of us. We thank him for his support and patronage to Electrama. Another high and strong piece during the year was developing and launching Vision 2047 for the electrical and allied electronic industry. EMA participated in the vision building exercise of Government of India and presented a vision. The key projections are on the slide. Just to summarize, 3% share in GDP from current 0.85%, 10% share in the world export by 2047, 8x growth per capita energy consumption from 1,200 to 10,000 units, energy transition led by EV and transportation, and also potentially India to become a global champion for storage and green hydrogen. We expanded our reach to the new business areas through our various B2B interactions as we transition into a bigger electric ecosystem. This means the next decade will be crucial for the Indian electrical equipment, and we gear up to meet the rapidly rising domestic demand and also establish our presence as an important player on the global electrical equipment. EMA will also evolve and work with its members to enhance competitiveness in the industry and promote Make in India in its move towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, quality, productivity, exports. Our key highlights for the year: EMA's advent as an independent exhibitor for the first time in Hanover Messe 2022. We also had some key meetings with policymakers and global counterpart associations. Launch of Next Gen EMA, Young at EMA, a platform for young entrepreneurs. Young at EMA initiative brought together young and dynamic business leaders from EMA member families, first and second generation family business owners and startups. EMA took a delegation of Young at EMA to Germany during the Hanover Messe. E3, meant to empower the East, was totally a business-focused event exclusively on requirement of non-utility segments with CEOs of smart cities, top officials from oil refineries, cement, railways, steel, coal, etc. Our first physical exhibition was Distribulec and Buildalec in Bangalore under the umbrella of Southern Region. Aligned with this newness and vigor, our keywords for this year are going to be electrification, sustainability, and digitization. EMA will definitely be acting as a catalyst as the industry stretches its wings and contributes to nation building and its philosophy of nation first. Thus, our convention theme this year is Electricity to Energy, Vision 2047, where our eminent speakers will indulge in in-depth discussion and brainstorming on green hydrogen, energy transition, and new energies and opportunities for 2030. I'm sure the session will be of immense value and there will be many takeaways and will be beneficial to the companies and the sector as a whole. I close by wishing all the best with assurance that EMA, your partner in this journey, will continue to do so during the Amrit Kal as we take our great nation to higher and newer glories. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vipul. Do you want to come here or you'll speak? You'll speak. Okay. I now invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Group Executive President, Aditya Birla Group. Please welcome.
Yes, or I can ask them to change the slide, that's okay. When I say next slide, move to the next slide, please, okay? No worries. Okay, it's 10:26. I have 25 to 30 minutes to talk about what I call staying relevant. So thank you, Charu, thank you, Vipul, thank you, Shambit, and my friend Rohit. Because of him, I'm here. We are colleagues in the Aditya Birla Group, and he said, can you kindly come and do this? And I said, definitely yes. I last spoke at the same forum in 2018 in Delhi. I remember that. So I'm coming here after 4 years. So to me, thank you. To me, whether it's a country, whether it's an institution, whether it's a company, whether it's a leader, the most important thing you need to think about as you go through the next 10 years, 20 years, is to stay relevant. If you are irrelevant in a fast-changing world, that's the surest way to death. So my simple message for you, and that's what I titled my presentation, stay relevant in 2030, okay? And then move to 2040, then to 2047, whichever way it is. So, my view, you'll see a two-speed world. You'll see the old developed economies behaving in a particular manner with their own constraints, with their own opportunities, with their own challenges, and you'll see emerging markets behaving very differently. Simply put, the old developed world will be slow and the new emerging economies will be fast. So we'll see a clear two-speed world. And the developed economies have always had a very simple definition, which is, per capita income, and that's how they have split, and saying beyond this, you're a rich country. However, it might surprise you to know that there is no definition for an emerging market. There's no one definition for an emerging market, and you'll see many lists across the world in terms of what is emerging, what is next, etc. So, the first thing I want to signal to you about emerging markets is, in the old world, we had the concept of the G7. But if you actually look at GDP per capita today, I would argue that you need a E7, which is emerging market 7 and no longer the G7. I think things have shifted dramatically. All the ones which are in blue are the emerging markets, and all the ones in that saffron color are the old G7. In purchasing power parity, today, the shift has already happened. And I think it will only accelerate even more. So emerging markets have moved from being what I call policy takers. In the past, they were given policies, they took policies. In the future, they'll be policy shapers. They will not lead policy in some areas, they will lead in some areas, but they will shape policy very, very differently. Okay? Next, if you look at share of Asia is very different. In the year 2010, about a decade ago, share of Asia was just 20%. By 2030, share of Asia will be 35%. So that's what I mean by a two-speed world. So everything this side of Turkey, this end of it, I think you'll see a very different growth and a very different paradigm. Next, if you go back to the 1980s, one of the favorite topics in every group discussion. Slides not moving, please. Yeah. No, go back. Yeah. One of the favorite topics in any group discussion, especially college entrance examinations, etc., would be India's population is the biggest problem, and people would keep debating it. And if you actually think about it today, India's population, coupled with two things, good quality education and good quality technology, is becoming our biggest asset today. So what was once seen as a millstone is no longer a millstone. Let's take a look at this chart. Let's see where the population is growing. If you just take birth rates and minus death rates, that's the net increase in population. So the first column is the birth rate. China birth rate is 11, death rate is 7, so which means they're adding 4. If you look at USA, birth rate 12, death rate 10, difference is 2. India, 17 birth rate, 1.7%, 7 death rate, 10. Now you look at Japan, Germany, Russia, they're all in the negative bracket. And Indonesia is similar to India, Brazil is 13.76, UK is 11.10.1, France is 11.10.1. Okay, so this has absolutely serious implications, okay, and very serious ones. I think the longer lifespan will affect at a very basic level what we call the workers to retiree ratio. Only if you have a good workers to retiree ratio will you have enough savings in that country. Otherwise, you will not have it. The countries which are marked in red, and a lot of them will be in Europe, have to seriously think of two things. They'll have to seriously think of immigration in order to bolster their population for working, or they have to extend the retirement age. One of the two. So this has many more challenges ahead of us. And I think the point about how do we build facilities for an older generation, how do we build talent pipeline for a very young generation, all the young countries will be very, very hungry for growth, whether it's the people, whether it's the company or the country. And how do you manage that will be something that you need to think about. So I mentioned we have a two-speed world. On the left-hand side are the emerging markets, which are getting younger and younger. On the right-hand side are the developed economies, which are getting older and older. And in this definition, anybody above 40 is seen as old. Remember that, in this definition, okay? So most people in this room would be old, I'm sorry to tell you that, by this definition. Okay, I talked of relevance. I think older workers will need to reskill themselves, and if you want to work longer, you have to continuously be on the reskilling machine. I think you need to reboot. I think a kind of jobs which we will see in the future, some of them we haven't even imagined today, and they will shape out as and when it happens, and a lot of it will be led by technology. If you look at share of Gen Z, which is at the bottom, India today has 27% of the Gen Z population, America has 23, and Japan is 14. Japan has a peculiar problem. It's old, and I'll cover it later. It's old, its language is not consistent with the rest of the world, okay, and it has lost all its innovation capability in the industries where it started, specifically electronics. So technology, an area which was really Japan's advantage of the past, okay, that kind of technology compared to the new kind of technology, they haven't actually made that leap. And I think they will be challenged in the future. The other thing about growth, we will see rapid urbanization. It's predicted that New Delhi will be the world's largest city by 2030. Okay. In terms of just sheer population, that whole area, it's a frightening thought. And if you look at the number of mega cities defined as more than 10 million, we're going to see something like 40 odd cities by 2030 which are mega cities. Now mega cities are both an opportunity for you and a challenge for you. The opportunities, they're extremely crowded. Okay? Privacy will be a challenge. Parking will be a challenge. The idea of a central business district itself will be a challenge. So I think city and town planners will have a hell of a problem trying to define how they want to manage this thing called the mega city. If you go to Bangalore today, a city I come from, I was born there and I visit the city often because my mother is there. If you look at Bangalore, there's the central Bangalore, there's the old Bangalore, which is Basangudi, Malleshwaram, Rajaji Nagar, and then you go to Whitefield, you go to Bellandur, etc. They're all satellite cities now. Anybody who lives in Belundur or Whitefield never even visits central Bangalore anymore for anything. Everything is self-contained there. So maybe we'll see a hub and spoke kind of a system when these mega cities develop, but I don't think people have given it much thought. You look at the problems of London, you look at the problems of Tokyo, I think you'll all live with it, with the problems of a Mumbai, a Delhi, a Calcutta, a Bangalore, and a Hyderabad. They will visit us, and it is both an opportunity and a challenge for you. Vipul spoke of this, and I'm just going to signal this because I'm told you have a panel on this. So if you look at this, oceans heating 40% faster than we imagine. Okay, sea level rising 57% faster than we imagine. Himalayan glaciers, okay, melting down 100% more than what we imagine. And Greenland ice cap melting 670% faster than we imagine. So this is not anymore, I think, a symposium topic or a research topic. This is real, and somebody like you, your body, you as leaders of this wonderful industry, you have to shape the green energy battle of the future. I don't think there's any chance without doing that. So almost everything you do, you have to address this, and this is absolutely critical. Okay? Equally, the world is going to get larger and larger in terms of population. We'll have close to 8.5 billion people or more by 2030, and we need 50% more food by then compared to where we are today. We need to produce so much more. So obviously, arable land is only so much. Okay, there'll be new technologies which will come in. There'll be new type of products. Food which does not require maybe a fruit or a vegetable, but gets converted more into liquid food. I think those are the kind of things you'll see in a future world. Today, as I speak with you, more than 25% of Indians skip their breakfast every day on the way to office, and Bombay will be higher. So what do they want? They just want a liquid shake which they can have on the way, either in the car or in the train. Okay, so the concept of food will change in its physical form as more and more people come into the world. Next one, an important point for all of you, because I see a mix of Indian companies and multinationals here. Why does the screen go twice? Okay, one of the fundamental aspects of the world economy today and world politics today is nationalism is in. Do not forget it. Nationalism is in. It's there in every significant country of the world, and I don't think it will go away in the next 5-10 years. And I'll explain why over the course of the next 2-3 slides. Second, regionalism is a must. So suddenly you find a number of free trade agreements happening and number of blocks coming. For example, India was represented at SCO recently. India is also part of the Quad. India is part of something else, ASEAN, etc. So lots of countries will jostle to be in the Venn diagram between all the countries to say, I will be part of your trade bloc. Being part of the trade bloc, either regionally or pan-regionally, will give you some advantages. So nationalism is in, regionalism is a must. You have no choice. And I was happy to hear Vipul say that the minister has promised that his counterparts from neighboring countries will come for your next big symposium. That's great news. And finally, globalization is a muted reality. You cannot do away with globalization. A lot of people, talk globalization, reverse, etc. I have simple stats to tell you that it is not possible. There is dependence. Now, let me explain. Where does a country or a group of people, where do they say globalization is fine? One, they say globalization is fine when they get low prices because of globalization. And America got low prices for 20 years when China became the world's factory. They say fine to globalization when there's no loss of jobs in their home country. They say fine to globalization when scarce resources in that country are not used. And they say fine to globalization when they say, you know what, I can't do it, I don't have what it takes to do it, and I'm happy for the global companies to do it. A great example of that is aircraft. There are just 2 aircraft manufacturers in the world of passenger jets. Okay, most countries would not have minimum scale even to start. They won't know where to start. Technology, what Silicon Valley offers today, most countries in the world do not have the capability to do it. So there'll be many aspects like this where countries will say, we are fine with globalization. Because if I don't have the benefits of that aircraft, I don't have the benefits of the search engine or all that stuff which is happening, then I as a country or something else will get left behind. So globalization in these conditions is an absolute must, and people will take to it, absolutely. Okay? Let me explain for you why I said it's a mutually dependent world. Exports and imports are about $11 trillion. The world economy this year expected to be about $100 trillion. Number one industry is financial services, which is about 24. You look at the people who are exporting and importing. That's a pretty common list. So if you want something, you need to be part of something. You need to give, you need to take. But in doing so, you have to protect what I call the national interests, which matter to you, whichever country you are operating in. So that's how it will work out. So there will not be any dominant player out there. The top 10 countries is what will determine it. So these are the top 10 exporters. These are the top 10 importers. And you can see the difference and see who is a net exporter, who is a net importer. It will balance out over a period of time. Okay? Japan, as I mentioned, old, insulated from the world. Language is a problem. In the past, Japan was superb in electronics in the 1960s, 70s. Okay, have they come with the latest technology or any of their companies today? The answer is no. And I'll show it to you again when I come to the market cap slide. Okay, and they are pioneers in cars. Are they pioneering electric vehicles? That's the question that they need to think about. Absolute superpower, superb work culture, very hardworking people, great technology, great innovation, need to reinvent themselves. Okay, so they need to stay relevant for a world which is moving very quickly. The other big change that you will see is artificial intelligence and robotics. If you see the size of the market, right now it's about 100 odd. It's going to go to 1.5 trillion, not small. Okay? I'll give you simple things. I think for every single household, machine assistants will be big. You call it a Siri, you call it whatever you want, or Alexa. Machine assistants will be big, and machine assistants will take on new dimensions which we have not imagined before. It will take on very new dimensions. Okay? Robots will displace 21 million people in their current jobs as they stand today. Where will robots start? They'll start wherever it's hazardous work. Wherever there's hazardous work is the first place where robots will start. Today, robots are Germany, South Korea, okay, Japan, okay, a bit of America. These are the 4 countries which are leading it right now. But it will spread. So hazardous work. Second is repetitive work. Wherever there's repetitive work, okay, robots will come in. Wherever there's standardized work, which does not need much, robots will come in. And wherever the cost of robo is dropping, okay, significantly compared to the cost of having an employee, employers will make that change. For example, you talk to many people, many housewives, people will say, you know what, I have a floor cleaning robo, but I really don't use it. And you ask them why, and the housewife says, it doesn't go under the chair or below the rug, etc. Somebody else has to do it anyway. So robots have to figure out, or people who make robots have to figure out. The other thing with artificial intelligence and robotics is that the very definition of quality of life will be challenged. I think, and I predict, that we'll see a new definition of quality of life in the coming years. In the old world, good quality of life was house, car, television. They all seem so basic today. In the last 10 years, it was Wi-Fi. Now things will be, moving on to a very different era. So AI will impact the very definition of quality of life. Next slide, please. So I think we'll see a new order in town, and that new order is 86% of startups have cross-border activity today. 86%. It can be customer, it can be technology, it can be funding, whatever it is. Today, 1 billion people have international connections, basically because of social media. 1 billion people are connected internationally today. You post something on LinkedIn, you can get from Alaska to Australia any comments or any feedback. Okay, 1 billion people are connected out of the 8 billion people that we have. Most sectors are less than 40% digitized. That's a challenge and also an opportunity. You have to digitize. Horizontal capability, digital is a horizontal capability. It helps you do things faster. It helps you be more agile. It helps move your workflow much, much quicker. If you have not digitized in your company or in your sector or in your industry, you are in trouble. Because tomorrow's competition is not what you see in this room today. Tomorrow's competition will be a very different type of competition. So don't look at competition as physically seen competition. Tomorrow's competition will be absolutely blindside competition. And finally, inequality will be a challenge. I think we see that already. There are lots of comments and lots of things which are happening around us are a result of the inequality that people perceive, people feel. Some people don't accept it, some people grudge it. Okay? It's only natural. My last section is on the impact on people. Okay? What do I see as the impact on people in the coming, even if I take the next 8 years? I think people is going to be a very big issue. I think the pandemic has made everybody pause and ask themselves a fundamental question. What am I doing with my life? Who has stood by me in the pandemic? Who has not stood by me in the pandemic? Why did I take a salary cut? Why did I take a bonus cut? Okay, people have asked these serious questions of themselves. So those 2 years, while everybody said, yeah, work from home, etc., I think it led to a lot of mental recalibration in terms of what am I doing with my life? And I think that has spilled on right now as we see some degree of recession across the world. It has made people even more challenged. And what I'm presenting to you is possibly the latest in this area in terms of thinking. Okay. 100 years ago, we had a car called the Ford Model T. 100 years ago. 100 years ago, Henry Ford started the concept of minimum wage at $5 an hour. Today in America, you have a serious debate about getting the minimum wage to $15 an hour. After 100 years, there are states in America where minimum wage is $7. There are states in America where minimum wage is $9. There are states in America where the minimum wage is $13. In 100 years, that great country is challenging itself to say, is 3-time increase in 100 years really warranted? Not warranted. Okay. So this is going to be a serious challenge. So I believe universal basic income will be a very powerful thing for all countries to consider. In some countries like Finland, other places, they've considered it, dropped it. Because the overall social benefits of a country like that are immense. So it didn't work there. But there are many places where I believe universal basic income will happen. Minimum wage at one level is one form of that. Okay? Next, everyone in the pandemic spoke of work from anywhere. Work from home, work from a coffee shop, work from the airport, WFA. Work from anywhere has now become work for anyone. You know, moonlighting is the big hot topic. I just written a 500-word article this morning for Hindu Business Line, which has appeared there. And you can see it on LinkedIn or in the Hindu Business Line. This work from anywhere and work for anyone is a serious challenge. And it's a direct outcome of the pandemic. And as 5G happens in India, you'll see more of it. Because suddenly the technology available at an individual level, at a house level, a household level, is higher than what is available in a company level, believe it or not. Today, households are more digitized in the way they work with digital technology than companies. It's a very unique thing. It's flipped. It's never happened in the past. Okay? Now, thanks to this, we see a new type of union. The old type of blue-collar worker union is no longer valid. We see white-collar union, we have delivery unions, etc. So what you see in terms of what I call the Amabucks, the Amazon and Starbucks. Why are Amazon and Starbucks being challenged on unions? This is the reason. Minimum wage, working conditions, etc., etc. Okay? So you will see more of this in a tech world, not less of this. Next slide, please. How will the new workplace look? And for all people, you need to think about it. I think you'll see younger, tech-savvy, less loyal people. I don't think you should talk of loyalty anymore. I think it's tenure. Okay? Employees today are volunteers. They are not employees. They have volunteered their time to you. They've given 3 years of their precious time. They've given you 5 years of their precious time. If you are good as a company, they will renegotiate and give you 3 more years. Don't think of them as employees. So if you start thinking them of employees and policies, etc., I promise you, you will fail. You have no choice. Think of them as volunteers. How do I want you to think about this? Imagine you volunteer for causes. You go and work. You teach in a school, you do something for an NGO, etc. Think of your employees like that. They have volunteered their precious time to you. If you can think of that concept, I think you'll hold on to your employees. Otherwise, no. I think the second thing is, you see the death of deference. Deference is an old world concept, a moneyed world concept, where entrepreneurs and everybody lent on their old family wealth to create industries. Today, the new industries which are created by very young, new people who do not have old wealth. They've created new wealth out of technology, out of ideas, etc. This new world does not have deference. The old world had deference. For example, in my team, in one of the teams I lead, the strategy team, we have a number of chartered accountant interns. People are doing 9-month and 10-month interns for us. People like Jatin and Lakshika and Nidhi, etc. Jatin, whenever I see him in the morning, he says, "Hi bro, how are you? How are things?" They don't call you boss, they don't call you sir, they don't call you anything. They'll call you by your first name or they'll call you bro or something like that. So that's the kind of, there is depth of deference. You might not recognize it, you might not encourage it, but it's there. Okay, it's for you to think about it. The older you are, the more relevant you need to be. The older you are, the more relevant you need to be. And finally, old models of leadership are not working. They're just not working. It's time to rethink the model of leadership. Next slide, please. I mentioned to you that staying relevant is the most important thing. I give you a slide of the companies with the highest market cap in 2000, 20 years ago. And I give you a list of companies with the highest market cap today in 2022. That's 2020 list. There's only one company common to the two lists in 20 years. And that is Microsoft. Nobody else. Some of the companies which are there, high market cap, don't exist also today, like GE, in its original form. Think about it. So this has some very fundamental issues for us. If you look at the left-hand list, there are some telecom companies there. And that's where I go back to my Japan example, NTT. The telecom companies always thought they owned the consumer. They were not. They were just a pipe. That's why they no longer created value. And so the market didn't reward them. So if you're not relevant for today's world, whether you have a pipe, whether you have a highway, whether you have a road, does not matter. You need to own something important for the consumer in a future world. So what do I see as people or companies which I think will definitely be up there in 2030, my guess? I think Alphabet will be there. I think Amazon will be there. I think Apple will be there. I think Microsoft will be there. Okay? On the others, I have a blue or a yellow, can go either way. But these 4 or 5 companies, I think, will almost certainly be there. So in 20 years, just one company has been able to stay relevant in that audience list. Okay? So, my last slide for you, and I've taken exactly 22 minutes, 23 minutes. 1, stay relevant in 2030. It's a 2-speed world. It's a developed per capita income sliced world vis-a-vis an emerging markets world which does not have a proper definition. Second, emerging markets were always policy takers. In future, they'll be policy shapers because that's where the growth is and people will need them. India will be a huge people provider to the rest of the world. If you just minus, the birth rate minus the death rate, India and Indonesia have positive demographics working for them. We will see a new supply chain, a supply chain which is built on data, which is built on technology, which is built on resilience, which is built on speed of reaction. That's very important for your industry. And finally, the impact on people. You see a very different employee. This employee you're seeing today is a volunteer. He's not an employee. They don't know what gratuity means. They don't know what PF means. They don't know what insurance means. They don't know what retirement plan means. They just don't know it. They don't want to know it. That new type of employee is whom you need to bank on. in a world where technology will be available, and your industry will lead one of the biggest technology shifts in this world, which is green energy. So I wish you the very best, and thank you, Rohit, again for inviting me here. It's been a pleasure to put this together for you.
Thank you, Shiv. That was actually very, very interesting. Thank you. I now invite Mr. Sambit Patra. So many people ask me, we got a politician here. I think you get that quite a lot.
I get that quite a lot, and that's how I get people to pay attention. But thank you, Shiv. Very insightful session. Always very hard to follow up his conversation. I'm meeting him for the first time, but heard a lot about you. Thank you for that session. What I'll do is try and make it the topic, the trend, slightly more relevant for the industry that you play in. Before I get into the slides, and as you know, as consultants, we use a lot of them, but I just want to leave 3 messages for you, and hopefully I'll get to cover that as I speak through for the next 15, 20 minutes. Number 1, this is a time of tremendous opportunity. I think everyone sees the challenges, but as any entrepreneur will tell you, challenges provide opportunities, so this is a time of tremendous opportunity. Number 2, there are fundamental challenges to get to full potential or manage those opportunities. And the third thing is, as Shiv also mentioned, the way you win in these times is not doing the same thing over and over again. This will need a dramatic shift in the way you run your business. It will mean a dramatic shift in the way you run your organization. And those are the 3 key messages I want to kind of emphasize today. Just moving on. Let me first start with the opportunity. Next slide, please. So, we have seen India exports grow by almost 30-35% in the last 3 years. And the current run rate, so to around $418 billion in FY22, and the current run rate is around $470 billion. Now, this is tremendous growth, and we have a lot of tailwinds backing this up. There is a new supply chain that's being developed. I'll talk a little bit about that. China plus one is a buzzword these days, but I think there is more than China plus one that's happening here. Second, we see a lot of, India has, given the demographics, given the, trends, there is an advantage that we have in some sectors to start with, but we're starting to see that across a lot of different sectors, and most relevantly in some of your categories. We are witnessing, I would say, more promise than action on the ground, but CapEx cycle is coming back in a few sectors driven by PLI and other incentives. There is a CapEx cycle. And the last one is we are starting to see a big interest from the investor community. And I'll talk a little bit about PEVC investments and where that trend is growing. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting one. When this is around COVID or a little before that, as the question was asked, as you think about your future supply chain, right? Where do you see that going? And this was through the top CEOs, head of supply chain globally. Very interesting insights. Actually, 2 came out very strongly. One was there was a double down on insourcing, right? Which is making things in your own country because of the ambiguities in supply chain. Second one was the China plus one. So looking beyond China, and that was an opportunity for Southeast Asia. And we see a major, if you look at the last 3-4 years, China costs started rising around Olympics, given the stringent environment requirements. There was an escalating wage bill there in China, which, and the differential came down versus other geographies. More importantly, what we're seeing right now happening in Europe around the energy bill, again, is an inflection point which will shift a lot of rethink on how to manage supply chain. Many people say this is COVID-induced, happened due to COVID. There will be a phenomena of snapping back to pre-COVID levels. Our core belief is COVID accelerated the trend, but all the trends were there even before COVID started, and we have seen that these will strengthen as we go forward. Next slide, please. This is an interesting slide. What we did is we actually looked at all the parameters that are important from a manufacturing setup, whether it's the labor for cost, or the operation, competitive size of operation, logistics, and other factors. It's quite interesting. You'll see two trends here. One, Vietnam is actually ahead, or edging ahead of China across a lot of things. And there is this whole talk about Vietnam becoming the factory of the world, and we actually see a lot of manufacturing shifting to that. Second is India actually is starting to get favorable across a lot of these parameters. India always had a large labor force, but what is good to see is that the cost of labor is also starting to be at least lower than China, but there's still a significant gap when you look at the Vietnam and Mexico, right? The other one is power cost, again, quite high for us, and hopefully with the whole push to clean tech, that there will be some relief from that. So this is just to set in context. There is an opportunity, but we are not the only ones going after that opportunity. As you think about your business, you have to think global, because there are other, not only companies in India going for the same opportunity, but there are companies elsewhere who are also targeting the same set of opportunities. Next slide, please. On the PE/VC investments, again, interesting. This is almost a leading indicator of where financial or investor interests are. We have seen a massive jump of 50% in the last 3 years in the space. 2021 saw a $70 billion infusion from the private equity and VC investors. Interestingly, 20% of that was for manufacturing companies, right? 20% of $70 billion. And a lot of the key sectors where the investments came in are actually sectors where you guys, or this group, is involved in, right? Whether it's EV, whether it's clean tech, whether it's more smart products, electrical products, and electronics products. So this is an interesting trend, and we just spoke to around 10 bulge bracket private equity investors in the last 3 months. There's a lot of interest on the themes that are coming out of what I'm just talking about. They believe there is a massive opportunity that Indian entrepreneurs can unlock here, especially when it comes to electronics and manufacturing. Next slide, please. So if you look at the 3 opportunities, right, and as you think about your own strategy, I think it's very critical to, you can't do everything, so it's very critical to think what are you going for. One opportunity is India, as an export market. India for exports. As I showed you in the first slide, we are clocking a run rate of $470 billion exports, and that trend is going to grow at the same rate that we've seen in the last 3-4 years. So India as exports is a big one. China plus one is a big theme, and it's going to stay even after COVID kind of dissipates or goes away. Second is domestic opportunity. I think it's again a significant. India as a market continues to be an attractive market, and a play for domestic continues. It's very underpenetrated in all of the segments that you participate in. If you compare India as a market in terms of penetration versus the global or mature market penetration, we are very, very low, right? Take cables, wires, take any kind of electronics. So it's a mega opportunity from a domestic consumption point of view. And the third one is a very interesting one, which is on import substitution. A lot of companies are actually looking at the imports coming in, and we see a major substitution happening in that. In mobile phones, we're starting to happen. I was looking at statistics on iPhone. There was 10,000 crores of exports of Apple products out of India last year. 25% of all iPhones globally will be made in India. You know, just think about the companies in other industries have spent 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to get to 10,000 crores of exports out of India. So this is massive value unlock that is going to happen. And I think this third one is all of you should pay close attention to what are the import substitution opportunities and how do you take care of that. Again, not relevant to your industry, but we're seeing a massive unlock happening in chemical, specialty chemicals, pharma, exactly with this theme, right? So those are the opportunities. Again, just going a little bit of more data on this. Exports opportunity we spoke about is a big one. This is the overall sector in FY28. This is the new article we just published, India as a $1 trillion opportunity. If you look at the big one, the one that's highlighted in red, which is electronics and electrical, we think it will be around a 140 billion out of the $1 trillion opportunity. Right now, this stands at around 18 billion. And this segment will have between 35 to 40% growth. And this is built on the supply chain orientation, but also mega trends like ESG, sustainability, clean tech, EV, electrification. These are major mega trends where we're just starting to see action in India. Next slide, please. The other angle to look at is if you look at this $35 billion of PLI scheme, and government is starting to play an enabling role in this, and we're starting to see PLI allocations coming in. Around 35 billion of PLIs announced so far, out of which, if you see the red portion, that's almost 17 billion outlay for E&E. And if you include EV and battery in that, that's another $3-4 billion that will come into play. So the alignment of government enabling framework incentives aligns pretty well with where this industry is going. And one could say how much of this has been successful, how much of this has been rolled out, how much this is talk versus action, but at least the intent seems to be in the right direction and is aligned to creating a manufacturing powerhouse. Next slide. So I'll just, Sanjay. There, I'll just ask my colleague to speak about EV. She's the EV expert. I said, let the experts speak rather than me. Come.
Thanks, Sambit. I've been tracking this sector for quite some time now, so I'm delighted to be sharing this opportunity about the emerging areas that are coming on this platform. So very quickly, EV penetration is expected to go about 10 to 20% in the most conservative scenario, right? What this means is there are two major implications from this. One, the vehicle ecosystem in its essence is getting fundamentally disrupted. The electric vehicle ecosystem is getting built from scratch to a large extent, which allows opportunity for new entrants to actually come in and gain ground over traditional suppliers. The second major point I want to just put across is that compared to the other developing markets, which is if I look at say US or Europe, the EV penetration in India is going to be two-wheeler led, right? Again, from a standpoint of opportunity, what this means is the two-wheeler ecosystem is getting built from scratch. Both traditional suppliers and new entrants will have to go on head-to-head to actually gain ground in the two-wheeler system. Can you go to the next slide, please? If I look at the kind of opportunity that's emerging across the value chain, battery, of course, is one of the biggest areas that everybody focuses on. Sambit's already spoken about how the PLI scheme is ensuring that a lot of the battery players are also building base here. This, in essence, means that the indigenization push by the government is leading to an opportunity across even the battery value chain. If I look at the BMS system, if I look at the kinds of connectors and cables that go within the battery, there's a huge opportunity that's emerging there. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the specific opportunities within electricals, mechatronics that seem to be emerging. Over the last few years, we've seen significant number of players entering this ecosystem, either scaling up their own operations, forming JVs with global companies to get technology, but the opportunity is far from over. There's a lot of headroom left for new entrants to come in. And to give you a very well-quoted example, on the BMS and the thermal management front, there's quite a bit that still needs to get done to ensure that the management systems are more suited for Indian conditions, which means Indian road operating conditions, Indian temperature conditions. So in essence, while the EV journey has just begun, there's quite a bit to go before we actually are able to gain leadership in this. Samvit will just speak about the kinds of key imperatives that this means for suppliers as they navigate the new ecosystem.
Thank you, Sandhya. Before I actually go to the imperatives, I think the other emerging trend that we see is clean tech, right? Which is driven by this massive shift in energy mix that we need to make for getting to our, our net zero goals. And very interestingly, a lot of traditional players, the clean tech space, every company, whether you're a utility company, they are coming to this. Whether you are a core consumer of energy like steel, cement, you're coming into this. Whether you're a tech company who are running tech platforms for energy trading, are come to this. This is an extremely interesting space. The point I want to leave here is, as Sandhya said, we are seeing massive disruptions. We are seeing industry landscape getting redefined, which means that two things for you. One, if you are getting too comfortable with what you're doing right now, my advice is don't, because the competition is not the people that you see in the room or you interact regularly. It is actually might come from a different angle or for someone else. And second, there's massive opportunity for you to think beyond what you do right now. So that was the opportunity. I won't talk about the challenges. I think the challenges are well known, but let's try to get it back to what does this mean for you? How do you think about the next 10 years? I think that the 3-4 parts to think about it. One, you have to sharply define where you want to play. These are mega trends. These are massive disruptors. There's a lot of things happening. We have seen companies get lost, right? Either they end up doing nothing and there's so much, I don't know what to do, or there are a lot of companies who start just launching 10 different things and doing everything. Both are not advised. You need to redefine a strategy. This is a good time to do that if you haven't already. And when you say redefine, what does this mean in terms of the customer segments? What does this mean in the value chain, which are important for the customer chain? A great example, Shiv, by telecom. Telecom always thought of customers, they own the customers, but they were just a pipe, right? So you need to think value chain. You need to start going to the drawing board and think customers. You need to think about segments and geographies, because like we just saw, it's sometimes in many of these things, it's not just India, it's a global play as well. So you need to think about geographies. As you do that definition, what we call as the where to play, right? I think there are 3-4 important considerations on how do you win in this. The first one being, we are hearing this a lot, especially for manufacturing exports. I think the opportunity is there, but Indian companies are struggling to get their OTIFs right, and they're struggling to get the consistent qualities right. You, as I said, you are not competing with the next company in India. You're competing against Vietnam, other countries who have a more developed ecosystem. So just think about quality, consistency, and supply chain and delivery. That becomes a core part. It's a no-brainer. It's a hygiene part. The second one is, you need to rethink what your differentiator is. The traditional sources of differentiation has always been scale and cost. I think there is another differentiation which is on technology, which is going to be critical, right? And even if you're a B2B player, customer side becomes a very important part. You need to find a way to be important to the customers, right? So those are the two things I would urge you to think about. It has to have a differentiator, and you should be able to define that. And third, as you saw in these new emerging markets, you cannot do everything on your own. The biggest companies, the ones that have the largest market caps, they work through an ecosystem and maze of partnerships, right? While you know what you make and what you are going to make, what you're going to own, but the customer is now looking at a solution, and hence you need to have that ecosystem around you and define it very clearly. In terms of the enablers, the partnerships like I mentioned, but also M&A. We see a lot of these industries. M&A previously in the good old days used to be only scale M&As, where you acquire someone to get market share, get scale, cost. We are increasingly seeing M&A becoming more scope M&A, where you're doing M&A to get a technology, to get a customer access, to get people, senior people. You'd be surprised how many M&As are happening to get the right set of people to start a business. And lastly, you have to do M&A if you're thinking about entering a new geography or a new segment. So stepping back, all of you should, our advice is go relook at our business strategy. What is core for me? How do I redefine the core given all the mega trends that I'm seeing around me? And maybe choose a couple of what we call as a new venture or engine to opportunities. It's a good time to incubate that, not with all the resources, do a 70-20-10 kind of allocation of time and resources, but critical to think about some new ventures which are probably linked to strengthening your core, but some capabilities that you don't have currently going on. So I think that's all I had for this session. Hopefully you're going back with excited with the opportunity, but also the realization that you need to do things differently in the next 10 years to take or benefit from this opportunity. And Indian entrepreneurship has done extremely well in these times of uncertainty, and we are very confident, and which is why we published a report. We think it's $1 trillion opportunity for the for whole manufacturing industry. And like I said, electrical and electronics will be the core of unlocking that opportunity. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Rohit. Thanks for inviting us.
Okay. Thanks, Sambit. I think its message is very clear from what Shiv and Sambit said. Is innovation, flexibility, and nimble-footedness is what I think the industry will need to do. With that, I think we're running a little behind time. So I'd like to close this session unless somebody has any 1 or 2 questions for our panelists. Otherwise, we'll just go on to the next session. Okay. Yep.
My question is to Shiv. As a manufacturer, in the next 5 years, what would be your advice to become cost competitive, become innovative, or create a brand? From not only from domestic, but from global point of view.
This might sound like a typical consultant answer, but I don't think you have an option of choosing one. Like I said, you need to have a differentiator at least, right, to win in the market. Cost is clearly one of them, but then it also depends on the customer that you're going for. We always come at it from the customer, right? If you are a premium product manufacturer, right, or someone who's able to brand the products premium, I think the differentiating factor for you is actually customer connect, and how do you, if you're able to drive premium pricing or premium ability to get more share in the premium market share. That doesn't say that cost is not important, right, for premium products. Apple is a premium brand with the best cost structure, right, and the best supply chain. So I think the answer is we'll have to do all three. The question really is, the interesting question is, if you have grown as a company as a cost leader, right, embracing technology, embracing these other things can get very difficult within the same organization. So people are starting to think of organization and creating teams, right, agile teams to do new things, which they haven't tried in the last 5 years. But I don't know, Shiv, what you think about this, but I think technology, all three are very important.
I'd say it depends on your strategy and the business model you adopt. That's the key as a company. If you go back to the tenets of strategy, as Michael Porter said years ago, focus, cost, and differentiation. These are the 3 generic strategies in any industry. Okay, so that's what you need to figure out. But your business model, if you're just a provider of products and services to somebody who's branding it on their own, that's a different business model. On the other hand, if you want to build a brand, and I suggest to you that don't think of building a brand only from a B2C lens. Today, every B2B company is a brand in itself thanks to digital. Yeah. Every B2B company is a brand. So don't think of branding just as a B2C phenomenon.
Well said. Any other? Okay. Sorry, do we have a question? Yeah, okay.
My question is for Mr. Shiv Kumar. I am Mr. Udas from Modern Insulators. I think your point of reskilling is correct. And yes, all of us have become old, and we have been doing that. Now, my question is about the different employee which you mentioned. It is very correct. The current people which we recruit, they are very, very different than maybe our generation or generation after that. So how to deal with this different employee? So can you elaborate?
That's a very good question. And unfortunately, there's no easy answer. So if you look at it, in the past, people are loyal to a company. Today, you could argue, are they loyal to a boss? Maybe some places, maybe not so in some places. Are they loyal to their colleagues? Yes. What have we as companies done? We have put out a purpose statement, we have done grand vision, all that kind of thing. We promised that. But the employee is saying, look, I don't really want to be part of that journey. Okay, in the past, all employees, and you and I also were similar, our model of career growth was what I call the high jump. How high could we jump in an organization? So 5 feet, 6 feet, whatever it is. That's how. Today's employee thinks of hop, skip, and jump. Okay, that's a very different model in his or her mind. All I can say to you is, I think you need to treat them fairly. You need to give them the best opportunities, and you need to, treat them as equals. Don't treat them as subordinates. If you give them that fairness, if they stay with you, damn good. If they don't stay with you, as Jonathan Livingston Seale said, set it free. If it's yours, it will come back. If it's not, it was never yours anyway.
So, to end with Richard Bach, who was one of my favorites. Okay. Any other? Otherwise, I think we'll just close this session. You'll have an opportunity. Thank you so much. Sorry, do we have one more? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi. I was heading the SME division of EMA. My question was to do specifically with SMEs. And all that I heard during the presentations by Mr. Shiv Kumar and Sambit, while it seemed to me that they were pretty important in terms of developing the organizations, what I was trying to figure out is, as an SME businessman, how is it we cope with all the changes that you were highlighting? Because we don't have a lot of wherewithal compared to other large corporates.
Fair question. So thank you for raising that. I think SMEs have to work with larger corporations in the sector or wherever it is. And I give many examples. Let's take you're in the packaging industry. You need to work with big players in that sector, whichever sector you're looking at, pharmaceuticals, FMCG, etc., to be part of that chain. Now, specific to SME, and every SME has this challenge and this question, especially in the startup world. The first is, you are an SME till you have 100 people. The moment you have more than 100 people, you need processes, you need systems, you need everything to work. As long as you have less than 100, why do people come to work for you? For the energy, for the sheer breadth of learning. Today he is manufacturing, he's also hearing in on topics on sales, marketing, etc. That exposure is what people come to. Okay, so working in an SME is like the cricket huddle. All of you get together almost every day, every hour, and say what's happening. The moment you become bureaucratic, which is the problem with all SMEs, every SME wants to be a large company. Every large company wants to be an entrepreneurial company. That's the paradox of life. Okay, no large company can ever become entrepreneurial. And every SME, as they become large, they need to recognize why they were an SME first of all. And you must try and hold that on. Okay, people work for you for being in the huddle, not to be put into boxes. Remember that.
Said Shiv, well said. I think I'll close this session now. We're running out of time. So thank you very much, Shiv and Sambit. Sorry, okay. So we'll just do a quick changeover before we go on to our next session on green hydrogen. Thank you very much.
That's the question I asked him on WhatsApp.
I'm around for a couple of hours.
Extremely brilliant. And I have to call you once to Jaipur. And I will take this opportunity to surely you. This platform to sunset. Platform to Boston.
और एक ही है तो अकेला ही है इधर हाफ राउंड ही लगा और एक टेबल है ना अपना
Okay guys, we're going to start the next session. I'm going to request a couple of IITs to get people inside the room, whoever has gone out. IoT, can we get the audience back in the room?
We will be having the panel discussions on green hydrogen, revolution in the making. I will request panelists to kindly come on the stage. Mr. Rohit Pathak, President-elect EMA, please. Yeah. Mr. Bimal Jindal, Mr. Srivatsa Anchan, Mr. Kapil Maheshwari, Mr. Chandra Tiwari, Mr. Narendra Nath Valluri.
Can we request the panelists to come on the stage? IoT, please get the audience back in.
Everyone, please sit down. Yeah. Good. I think we have quorum. Let's start, and I'm sure the conversation will attract people back in from the coffees. Can everyone please take seats? Yeah. Okay. So, I think two amazing startup sessions from Shiv and Sambit. Idea was to just challenge all of us to just pause back and think how what's happening around us. Being a consultant at heart, I think it's a normally we always say sit back and try and connect all the dots around you.
to see what's happening and what you need to do differently. This now afternoon, or sort of this next session is around couple of topics around new energy which are big. Everyone is talking about it. So we thought we'll use this forum to first get started on the topic of green hydrogen, which is, everyone is talking about it. No matter where you, which forum you are in, people are talking about green hydrogen as the next big thing. I was in Germany a month ago, and the first topic that came up in my conversations there with some of the industry leaders was, we are trying and experimenting with green hydrogen, given the gas issue from Russia, and that's going to be the next big thing. So I think it's a big topic. What we thought is we'll get people who are actually doing something about it in practice to come here and share their thoughts. We have EY as our thought partner on this, and I'll ask Srivatsa, who's a senior partner at EY, to just introduce the topic for all of us, to lay the broad play field that we are in. And then, we have Mr. Bimal Jindal from L&T, Kapil Maheshwari from Reliance, Chandra Tiwari from Tata Power, Narendra from Government of Kerala, and Srivatsa, who's here, to share their perspectives on how they seeing this opportunity and what are they doing on the ground to make it happen. I think this is probably the most representative group you can get to talk about what's happening in the sector. So without much, I'll ask Srivas to come and first address two things. One, what is this green hydrogen all about? And what are the elements around this which are relevant for all of us to think about, because it's a big opportunity area, as well as potentially a big threat if you don't do anything about it, because market and industry will move to those areas. So Srivas, over to you.
So thank you everyone for this opportunity. If we can just pull up the presentation that we had shared. Yeah. So I thought I'd talk about green hydrogen, but in a way bring it to earth. There is a lot of buzz around the subject, but the intent here was to say, why is green hydrogen now very real and relevant as far as the energy ecosystem? So I thought we'd start with talking about three key stakeholder cohorts who are invested in the clean climate agenda and deriving from the same energy transition. So the first is governments, right? And we thought we'd frame this less as an India-only story, but also talk about this in the global context, where we see governments signing up for net zero decarbonization goals and putting in place frameworks for the broader stakeholder cohort in order to adhere to the same. Time frames ranging from 2045, 50, 60, 70, with regards to the achievement of decarbonization goals. The second is corporates, who are taking a probably more forward-looking position in terms of saying, we will execute on these goals faster, but in doing so, do it very clinically, in order to ensure that emissions are addressed across what we typically call scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 areas. Each of these has a material implication for the energy transition, and I'll talk about it later. The third cohort, and I think Shiv mentioned customers, right? And we speak of customers, it's just those who buy, but those who will also partake of this. There is a very clear recognition that there needs to be change, and there is a switch in buying behavior towards what are perceived as and what are certified as cleaner, greener products. So therefore, the confluence of these three cohorts and their priorities are driving the change on the energy towards energy transition. If we move forward, I use the word energy. The next slide, please. So if we look at energy, right, and for us speaking to this audience today, it was focused on a slightly broader theme of electricity or power, heat, and transportation, and I'll throw in feedstock for equal measure, right? And the intent is to identify consumption at the customer end, at the end-use consumption end, in order to assess where there will be a change that is required. And I'm setting this up in the context of green hydrogen being a very meaningful vector in decarbonizing power consumption, decarbonizing heat and its application, and decarbonizing transportation more so in the heavier transportation segments. I'll throw in feedstock as well. So the lens that we would want to table before the forum is green hydrogen demand is arising out of the need to decarbonize power, heat, and transportation in end-use industries across the cohorts. And I'll just close out on this slide by referring to initiatives that are underway, very real initiatives that are underway to explore ways and means to drive the decarbonization agenda. If you move forward on the next slide, why green hydrogen, right? Green hydrogen is a secondary energy vector that has a very, very low emission footprint. On the right-hand side, you see the relative comparator for the emission footprint of hydrogen from various sources, starting with steam methane reforming, doing right up to the electrolysis process run through renewable energy on a round-the-clock basis, and it's minimal. Now, as a secondary energy vector, green hydrogen has greater enthalpy, and therefore it finds application in those places where electrification does not necessarily lend itself. So therefore, I call out heavy transportation, I call out metals, where there is intense application of heat. I call out chemicals and fertilizers and petrochemicals as feedstock. And lastly, where you find heat applications, right? So if one looks at hard-to-abate sectors, green hydrogen becomes a very meaningful, significant decarbonization lever towards reducing emissions through the substitution of it as of energy sources as well as feedstock. So we spoke about the need to decarbonize, the commitment to decarbonize. We spoke about areas where decarbonization would come in. Now let's move forward in terms of looking at the demand for green hydrogen. So if we were to close out on the next slide, there are 4 broad thematic areas that we believe will stimulate the demand for green hydrogen. I think the eminent speakers in the earlier session spoke about customer propensity, they spoke about initiatives from the government, but fundamentally the 4 themes are essentially a commitment to decarbonize, including policy support, and policy support both on supply as well as consumption sides. The clear need to drive the substitution and provide access to green financing. Maturation of technology, right? So if we look at the electrolysis process, and I'll talk about the supply side in the next slide, but it is with reference to driving an improvement in technology efficiency and therefore cost competitiveness. So for us, when we look at the secularity of the shift towards cleaner energy sources, it is driven by one intent, but also cost competitiveness. And therefore, for us, the lens to apply is the delivered cost of energy at any point of consumption. And for us, just to close out on the demand, we see the greatest demand for green hydrogen as an alternate fuel type coming in industrial applications, which is a combination of heat and feedstock. We see power coming through as well. This is power generation, and an interesting use cases emerging around green ammonia co-firing in fossil power generation plants. And lastly, on transportation, right? This is heavy transportation, which typically doesn't lend itself to battery electric vehicles. There was perspective shared on 2, 3, 4-wheelers, but this is heavy transportation, multi-axle vehicles on road, but also looking at shipping, also looking at airlines. And there are the applications emerging with regards to fuel cell technologies that will lend themselves to heavy transportation, but being infused with hydrogen or its derivatives. An important theme that I would highlight is green hydrogen as a secondary energy vector will also find forward applications looking at methanol as well as ammonia. If we move forward, I'll toggle to the supply side. Now, this is where, as consultants, we can complicate a slide, but the intent is to ensure that it brings forth choices that are available before those who are investing in the supply ecosystem. And we have an August panel that comprises individuals who are and entities who are invested in this. But in very simple terms, there is generation, and for green hydrogen, it is important to have renewable energy. So that's the first vector where we look at solar, wind, and coupled with storage in order to drive around-the-clock supply. So it's critical to assess, is this intermittent or round-the-clock supply towards clean energy supply for the electrolysis complex. Moving forward, there is the electrolysis route, which essentially provides for the green hydrogen concept. If you adopt steam methane reforming, which is the bottom, then you end up with blue hydrogen. So these are color codes that have been defined with the industry. But the intent, and I suppose the audience today would be very much focused on green hydrogen because that is where we see the investment in technology and the investment in capacity creation towards achieving the broad decarbonization agenda. But that's not where the story ends. This is where it starts, right? So electrolysis is the process by which you produce green hydrogen, but the fuel is volatile. It requires specific storage conditions, and therefore there are various conversion elements. And these conversion elements are with reference to evaluating, is it a liquid organic hydrogen carrier or methanol or ammonia that becomes the vector by which hydrogen is transported. Once transported, it needs to be stored, so there are various mechanisms by which you could have storage. We evaluate caverns, we evaluate fuel cells, we evaluate just tankages, depending on the nature of the fuel in question. But then you get to application, right? This is where we spoke about transportation, we spoke about heat, we spoke about power generation itself. So there are going to be application-oriented assets that are created in order to infuse green hydrogen and its derivatives into the energy ecosystem. So this is my penultimate slide, and the call out for the audience here is, as capacity gets evaluated and built out in the energy ecosystem under the aegis of energy transition, there are going to be options that are evaluated. And therefore it becomes critical for us to understand where these choices will exist, and as the supply side ecosystem for the same, be very choiceful in terms of technology, capacity, and therefore participation in investment and consortia creation as far as green hydrogen is concerned. I'll close out by, in the next slide, this is a call out for toggling from what we spoke of as the supply side infrastructure, but moving into a component infrastructure. So this is by no means exhaustive and exclusive, but the intent was to say there will be a component ecosystem that emerges that is much more exciting, complex, but also value accretive as far as those in the room are concerned. And it is for us as the collective to explore how to play in the evolving green hydrogen ecosystem as it gets built out in the country. I will also leave you with the thought that this is, India presents a very attractive market as far as capacity creation is concerned. So therefore the themes that Sambit spoke of around indigenization, export opportunities, etc., will persist. But I'll call out exports as well, because we see the green hydrogen ecosystems being built out in developing economies, right? So this is not just a developed world play where there could be dependencies and there could be uncertainties associated with the secularity of the commitment to transition. So I'll leave the forum with the thought that green hydrogen is real, it is now, and it represents a significant vector for transforming the energy landscape of the country, and therefore presents a great opportunity for us at IMA to grow. So let me pause there and probably transition to the panel discussion, after which we will have Q&A. But thank you for this opportunity.
So I think let's move to the panel, and maybe Saif, you'll moderate. But I think one starting question for some of our panelists, which maybe you can help share your thoughts, is one, how real is this topic now, right, in terms of how you're thinking about doing and taking action on the ground versus on the drawing board? And second, as you see this opportunity play out in your companies and your strategies, what role do you feel people sitting around the room who have been in the electricity space for a long time, or the energy space for some time, what role do you see some of them playing to be part of this consortia as you play out your strategies? I think these are the two main questions, which I think you can start with. It will be great.
So, thanks, Rohit, and thanks, Vatsa, for setting the context. I think, Rohit, you have started it right. I'll ask Bimal, and then we can go around listening to that.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Srivastava and Mohammed. Thanks, IMA, for inviting us for this panel discussion. I think this is a very interesting question, Rohit. So I think one major point I would like to highlight, on the hydrogen side, India is making progress along with the world. Unlike, if you look into the renewable industry or other industries, we were always followers. We used to get, a lot of stuff once, it's matured, it's already there, and then we implement and we feel always it's real. I think one good thing which we should cherish as a Indian and as a India, that the green hydrogen is moving at the same pace in India. And I think that's the reason why it's raising the questions and concerns that what is happening. So when the world is evolving, everyone is talking about green hydrogen. There's no real or major mega or giga scale project has happened so far. Everyone has announced they are trying to do, and India is also trying to do. So if you look into, India has set a very clear vision. We are trying to do 40% of our total hydrogen requirement to be green by 2030. And we are today slightly under 6 million tons of hydrogen in total. I'm not talking about the colors. Interestingly, hydrogen is a colorless and odorless gas, and it is defined in many colors, which is interesting part. But yeah, so we are talking about this slightly under 6 million will become 12 million by 2030, and 40% will be roughly 5 million tons will be green. So which is a massive target. I think we should look it from the positive side. And industry is making good move. We are already seeing many of the pilot projects has been done. Even as L&T, we have also commissioned one of our pilot plant. So things are moving in the right direction in a brief. Now, answering your second point on the industry side, we are already talking about Atmanirbhar or making in India. To do this green hydrogen or green ammonia or hydrogen and derivative projects, we need a lot of infrastructure and supply chain which need to be built. I believe IMA members and industry can play a vital role. We can even become an export hub, for the ancillaries, leave the main, electrolyzers from India. We have a lot of potential. India has been always pioneer in manufacturing. And I was seeing, some of the slides which is shown in the previous session. Yes, we lag on the resources, but again, we have a lot of potential. We were competitive in what Sambit showed, in most of the parameters except the last parameter. So I see, if the industry look into the demand, if they can plan out in advance, and if they try to, work on all these schemes, even these PLI schemes are giving a lot of push and, boost to the manufacturing sector in India, we are in right track. Yeah, thank you.
So just to add where Bimal left, on an demand and supply side, as in country, he said that we are already around 6 million metric tons of market. By 2030, it could be 12 to 15. And the ambition would always be that most of it should be from green hydrogen. Now, from a Government of India perspective, they've set a target of 5 million metric tons. But if you look at the industry announcements, at this stage where most of us are possibly doing pilot projects, in total announcements could be upwards of $100 to $200 billion worth of investments in this sector in next 10 years. Now, that is massive by any size for a sector which hasn't seen much of maturity till now. So from that perspective, I will say we are well positioned compared to many other countries. And I will say why I said we are well positioned, because of two simple reasons. The one major critical item for production of green hydrogen is the renewable power. Now, India, compared to many other countries, and let's take an example, EU demand, which they just released a policy of 20 million metric tons in next 10 years because of their securing energy security, etc. 10 is within the EU region, and 10 is where they provide us an export opportunity. Now, why India is well positioned for two reasons. India has been an ecosystem for last 10 years for renewable production, and we are one of the lowest LCOE, and we have all seen that right now also. And India has land to do renewable production compared to many other places where it's not there. And India has the manpower because the ecosystem is already built. People can say we can even go to Africa, etc., where there's land, where there's sunshine, but where's the manpower? So India is well positioned from all those aspects to cater to the demand. The second most important aspect I would say is people have now started working towards looking at it more holistically. So we are looking at the whole ecosystem where I say that, okay, Vatsa just gave a slide which was, a lot of blocks. And if you divide it in upstream, midstream, and downstream, from an upstream side, which is the generation of hydrogen, we are well positioned because we can provide the lowest cost of energy. Government of India has already come up with PLI for solar module manufacturing and advanced chemistry battery. And it will soon be coming out for possibly for the electrolyzer manufacturing as well. So there we are possibly covered from an from a manufacturing side of it. What remains as an holy grail is the storage and transportation. And that is where I feel is as industry we need to work to come up with solutions which can possibly resolve these kind of things, like whether conversion gas to liquid is better, whether storing it in some carbon fiber cylinders or containers is fine. How do I compress it? Do I have compressors which are available in India for these high pressure kind of a thing? So those are questions if we answer for the midstream segment is where we are able to resolve, where many others are also still figuring out answers. And on a downstream, as Srivatsa also mentioned, that we have to look possibly as feedstock as an energy carrier. So hydrogen would have both the application. Even presently, hydrogen has these two applications. I'm talking more for green because we have not seen conferences like this happening 2 years back when it was gray. Why is this happening? Because we are all talking of green hydrogen now. So be it usage in various things like, either at feedstock or in the energy carrier, which is in transportation, etc. We'll have to see those things. And your second question, Rohit, on what can this particular forum do? As I said, let's take an example, rather than talking some theoretical. We talk that somebody will provide us the electrolyzer. Okay, we will import it. Take an example, but 40% of rest of the cost is all balance of plant. Industry can play a very good role in defining that whole paraphernalia which goes around the electrolyzer. In a similar way, renewable, of course, remains a segment where we are and we would continue to be. And as I said, the other application could be in storage, transportation, and conversion on the downstream application where we would look more on take an example of steel where there will be DRI furnaces. So those are things where I would say as this forum could play a key role when we define the whole value chain as a holistic ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you. I think hydrogen generation by electrolysis is not a new to the industry. Because most of the people here are from electrical and electronic industry. So in all our thermal power plant, we have been producing hydrogen by water electrolysis. Only thing is that those electrolyzers were of kilowatt scale, and now we are talking about megawatt or gigawatt scale. Okay. Having said that, if you will talk about India, so in India, way back in this August 2021, Prime Minister announced National Hydrogen Mission, and in February 2021, hydrogen policy has been released by Government of India. So the only thing is that if you see the hydrogen policy, they are talking about waiver of ISTS charges, they are talking about 30 days energy storage and all those things. Region, because if you see the hydrogen policy part, then most of the policies are related to generation, transmission of the renewable energy. Reason being that if you see the cost of green hydrogen, and in the present, whatever is the cost of electrolyzer and whatever is the cost of green energy or renewable energy, then cost of green energy is likely to contribute more than 60–70% of the total cost of green hydrogen. So what it means? What it means to the electrical industry, electrical and electronic industry, because if you see the renewable energy solutions, so in renewable energy solution also the major cost is the cost of electrical part only. Okay. And second thing, if I'll come back to the hydrogen generation plant where this balance 40% cost lies, there too, the cost of electrical infrastructure which is required for the hydrogen generation plant is more than 30%. lot of transformer will be required, switch yard equipment, switch gears, cabling. So what I feel that there is lot of scope for electrical industry in green hydrogen value chain. And people are, but the thing is like people are talking that what will be the cost of green hydrogen. So somebody is talking it will be $4, $5, $6. My only point is that the cost of green hydrogen is yet to be discovered. Reason being that if you see the global data, so presently we have around 500 megawatt of installed electrolyzer across the globe. Okay, and what is our target? We have a target of say 134 to 200 gigawatt of electrolyzer across the globe by 2030. And if I'll talk about India also, even if I'll take a 5 million metric ton of hydrogen generation target by 2030, and I'll consider say 12 to 15 gigawatt per million metric ton of renewable capacity or electrolyzer capacity. So in that case also we will be requiring something around 60 to 75 gigawatt of electrolyzer to meet this type of capacity demand, because most likely we will not be able to operate these electrolyzers on round the clock basis, because whatever round the clock solutions are available, those are very expensive. So people are talking whether I should operate my electrolyzer at 50% time using low cost renewable energy, or I should operate at 80%. Again, there is a cost economics, like how your electrolyzer cost is coming down, how your electrolyzer efficiencies are improving. So those factors will decide. But still, whatever 500 gigawatt target India has for renewable capacity by 2030, we expect that something around 60 to 75 gigawatt maybe because of green hydrogen also. And in all those things, all these electrical and electronic industry will have a major share in terms of their business volume. That was from my side. Thank you.
Right, thank you for the invite. Actually, there is a saying like a nation that cannot control its energy resources, cannot control its future. So that is the precursor wherein the countries, as and when the globalization has progressed, so energy was always the driving factor. So 20 years back, it was the ultra mega power plants. So after that, the 1-2-3 agreement with the US for nuclear energy. After that, the renewable energy push. And currently the green hydrogen that we are talking. So always energy was the key role in for the past 20 years. But as said earlier, so the important factor here is we are on par with the developed world. So as we are discussing, so the Germans have only been into the pilot plants, and we have already established our pilot plants. So that means the movement has already started here, whereas the others we had to import, or we had to import technology, and we were the latecomers in other technologies. But in green hydrogen, we are already into the movement here. And the policy push has already been initiated by the government. So it is a great opportunity for all of you to think about the green hydrogen and the ecosystem surrounding it. So we'll be a great moment really to push for in the next 4 or 5 years.
Thank you very much. I think the first two questions have covered most of the things that the people are wanting to hear. And I believe I'll ask one more question and then we'll open it, Rohit, because it's more these people to ask. And the question here is, while you all have touched right now how the electrical industry and the electronics industry is relevant to the value chain, what do you think these people should be preparing themselves for, given that green hydrogen for the next decade is going to be something transforming for the overall energy sector? So anything different that the industry has to do to prepare for this change which is happening? As we saw what Shiv was saying, that you have to be ready for the next thing. So that's the same question. And anything specific you want other than what Mr. Chanda mentioned about that generation heavy is something which we all see for the T&D industry, and Versa shown a lot of things in the subsequent value chain. So what particular parts apart from generation do you think there can be more focus?
Thank you. So I think the multiple component, like Kapil also said, that the electrolyzer is only one part, the 40% is balance of plant. However, I will say even within the electrolyzer, most of the components can be manufactured in India, whether it's a, PCS, whether it's a rectifier transformers. I think the Indian industry has a lot of potential. They can focus on building the supply chain. Right now, if you look into the delivery of electrolyzers is, going up to 2 years, plus minus, 6 months, so depending on the manufacturer. It is because of demand and supply gap. The demand and supply gap is happening at two fronts. One is at the stack level, which is the core component of electrolyzer. The second is the balance of system of electrolyzer. So that component manufacturing also, I think, can be picked up quickly by the industry. And we can, like I said, we can be a global sourcing country where people can, depend on us. The second, the controls and safety is going to be another paramount feature in hydrogen. Like I said, hydrogen is going to be a odorless, colorless gas. The safety precautions which need to be taken taken with utmost care. So all these factors are going to play, and the control system which need to build up to monitor, to control the complete system from the safety perspective also is going to, be very, very critical. I think if we can try to look into all this, plus, the delivery timelines, I think, which also going to push the manufacturing as well as the development of the assets. Right now, we speak about the manufacturing timelines are pretty, spread because of the imports. So manufacturing in India will again cut short on the larger logistic cost as well as the logistic time. So the Indian industry can focus on that. I think there are a lot of potential which we are having as a country. The different materials we can process. I believe with the PLI coming, it can happen. Another factor which is very critical, I believe, as an industry need to be touched upon is on the standards. I believe IMA is always, one of the body which, always spearheaded this thing. Right now, we don't have any formal standards for green hydrogen. If you look into renewable industry, most of the equipment are having their certifications, IACs, BIS, but if you look into the green hydrogen side, we don't have anything. The industry need to define those standards, they need to define the codes, specs, everything. It need to become like a standard modular block design, which is happening for the solar. I think this all factors come together will push the manufacturing as well as the drive towards the green hydrogen. Thank you.
Well, most of the sectors where industry can contribute is, fairly well covered by Bimal. I would just say, we have been speaking pretty high on Atmanirbhar or, self-reliance. I think it's time possibly we should also do some Atmanirikshan or self-introspection. Where are we compared to where we want to be? Government will come up with these PLI schemes, and the whole idea under all of these PLI schemes would largely be to focus on the, increase in the local value addition for the product for which the final PLI is. So take an example, be it for more renewables or auto or any other sector. So from that perspective, I would say including SMEs would play a role, because to increase local value addition, it will never always be the main supplier who is doing that production. It will be in value chain which needs to be created. So all of those would play a key role in the whole thing. We already have many of these small suppliers present in country for all things what we just spoke, possibly for electrolyzers, rectifiers, all the power electronics which is and including the control system. So not that suppliers don't exist in India, it's how we build an ecosystem and then scale it up is something which we really need to look and carefully introspect, I would say.
Yeah, very well said by Kapil. Like if I'll talk about electrical and electronic component, so those are very much mature technologies are already available. Only challenge could be how quickly we can deliver, how we can standardize our design, how we can supply the pre-wired system or skid-mounted system so that construction duration can be reduced. This is the challenge for electrical and electronic industry. If I'll see the other component of hydrogen value chain, then what we feel that if somebody is talking of 12-month or 18-month completion time for a hydrogen generation plant, then other long lead item could be the compressors, because we have a very limited supplier for compressor across the globe, and that too when we are talking about 1300, 1400 bar compression. So maybe something can be done for the compression part. As far as storage and transportation is concerned, so this area also requires a lot of attention, because so far we have not been transporting hydrogen to a long distance, and hydrogen being the lightest molecule, so storing and transportation of hydrogen is a big challenge, and that's why our previous speaker spoke about converting hydrogen into ammonia or some other form, because there we want to increase the energy density. We can easily transport ammonia. We can have the ammonia transportation infrastructure, but at the same time, the challenge is that when I am converting hydrogen into ammonia and then at a user point, again I am converting ammonia into hydrogen, there is an energy loss. There is an energy loss to the tune of 30 to 40%. And for transporting the hydrogen, we don't have required infrastructure. We don't have the high pressure type 1, type 2, type 3 type of cylinder. So industry has a lot of scope to work really on working on this hydrogen storage and transportation part, hydrogen compression part. So far, whatever talk is going into the India, mostly people are talking about hub and spoke model, wherein for a cluster of industries, people are thinking of making hydrogen generation plant, so that we don't have much problem in dispensing and transferring the hydrogen to the end user. But going forward, when we are talking of using hydrogen for mobility, or when we are talking of using hydrogen for smaller industries, so in those cases, the transportation and storage cost is going to play a major role, and we need to do a lot of things on transportation and storage part, and there is a lot of scope. That is my view. Thank you.
So just a couple of points, to what Mr. Tiwari mentioned, right? I think technology and innovation will be critical. While there is an understanding of the component, ecosystem that's currently prevalent, cost competitiveness will be critical. Cost competitiveness in terms of delivered cost of energy. So therefore, if we look at renewable supply, electrolysis, storage, transportation, storage again, and eventual application across a very complex set of customer segments, right? There will be new use cases that will emerge, and you could either repurpose existing technology to fit the same or identify ways and means. So I'll call out technology awareness, technology partnerships, and to Naren's point on, we have the unique opportunity to leapfrog, right? And therefore, if we are focused on understanding where these use cases exist and invest ahead of the curve on technology as an industry, right, we will serve the objective of the energy transition immeasurably. So I'll just leave you with the innovation thought. Sorry.
Anyhow, the opportunities are there. So the main focus, as pointed out earlier, was it should be on the quality, consistency, and the pricing. So that's where the industry will finally determine what price the hydrogen is being sold at. And quality, consistency, I'll quote the example of the EV charging infrastructure that we go on establishing. So, whereas the vehicles capacity have increased, the battery capacities, so we started establishing the slow charging 25 kilowatt charging stations. But the vehicles take more and more time for getting infrastructure charged. At the same time, so we manufacture the cheaper DC fast charging stations, but they have their apparent problems, and the customer satisfaction is far below what has to be done. whereas the European charging stations come at a hefty price, which is 2 to 3 times than the charging station. So it all boils down to the quality, consistency, and the price at which the industry supplies, so which finally determines the price of the green hydrogen to the market.
Thank you very much.
So, Saif, I think before we open it up to the audience, I just thought, building on some of the points mentioned by most of the panelists, I think one question, if any one of you can answer for the audience, I think you mentioned that this is probably the first time at this scale India is doing something where we are in sync with the world, or maybe even slightly ahead of the world at the moment, right? Which requires a very different mindset on how we operate compared to what we've done in the past, where we have copied fast, we have localized fast on existing stuff. So confidence on going into, taking something which has worked somewhere else is higher. Here you are going into a bit of uncharted territory. Given a lot of our members are MSMEs, SMEs, whose risk-taking, while is good in known areas, where they were familiar, this is a technology area where they are themselves not sure. So I think the question I had is, as you look at developing your ecosystems for supplying, the key parts, ingredients for making this a reality, what mindset shift you expect from the people sitting here to be able to catch up with you versus, then you're saying, oh, Indians are not able to do it, I'll go and get it from somewhere else to get going. And how do they plug into your networks? Because, if I look at L&T, Reliance, Tata, they're all big companies, right? And many of them will struggle to get to the right person in your teams to say, oh, I want to do something, I don't know much about it, but I want to try something out. Right? How do we make that network happen is sort of a correlated question I had. If any one of you may want to answer that, that'll be great.
No, I think it's a good point, Rohit. But again, I will try to simplify. The tire manufacturer is manufacturing a tire. Whether it's going in a Mercedes or Maruti or, any car, it does not make a difference. So the simple answer is, for most of the MSMEs, if they are manufacturing their component as per the quality and specification requirement, the integration is not their job. There are other people who will integrate. However, the quality is one of the area of concern in the past. I think that need to be taken care of, because in the hydrogen space, the safety is going to be paramount. People need to be slightly cautious, and again, we cannot do the same things which we have done with the low risk items. Like solar is a much easiest form of the power plants. The risk is less. If something goes wrong, it does not make a difference. But in hydrogen, you cannot afford that. If you look into the transformers, cables, compressor, everything we are manufacturing. So that we need to do. The second part, I will say, the R&D. In India, we are lagging to most of the time in the R&D part. We don't spend any of the effort on research and development. We typically try to copycat, like you said, or follow. R&D is going to be one of the key area when you're trying to evolve and become the world leader, and you want to move along with the world. So you cannot simply say that I'm doing this conventional way, I will continue to do that. I still recall one quote of Nokia CEO. He said that we did nothing wrong. So it's not like you are still doing the right things, but if you're not evolving along with the world, you will not be there where you are today. So there I will just finish my comment. Yeah, thank you. You want to add?
No, a slightly different view, because first of all, it's not that this is something very, very new. In fertilizers, we have been handling ammonia. 6 million metric tons of hydrogen capacity to be produced or consumed in India is roughly 10% of global capacity. So not that we don't know how to handle hydrogen from a safety perspective. Hydrogen doesn't see in color that I'm gray or green. It's the hydrogen, the way it is. So, and electrochemistry hasn't changed for last 30 years. Same kind of electrolyzers were made 20, 30 years back, what we are talking right now. possibly going forward, because of economies of scale, we will see what happens is the cost of capex, what you will incur in making electrolyzers, will come down, and large possibilities would be because of either efficiency increase, so how many units you take to convert 1 kg of hydrogen, or possibly the overall cost of electrolyzers, largely from a perspective of the economies of scale and the government scheme and support to just give in kickstart. And also in a lifetime, possibly each electrolyzer is working 10, 12 years right now. Can it work for 20 plus years? So those are things which will then drive down the way we look at it. But there is nothing new. So let's not go in a myth that it's a complete new sector and we have, we are where we cannot be. This is a land where it's very difficult to be, or this is a sector which we have no know-hows, etc. to be. We have all possible know-hows. It's just a matter that there will be larger players who would work on the ecosystem in a more holistic way, would look at upstream, midstream, and downstream in a complete setup. There'll be players who would look at each of the element, and within that element, some sub-elements. And that's how the whole ecosystem will be built. So I would say, we have all the possibly know-hows available, which is known to some of those developed nations, of course, and you would see, there's a lot of know-how and JVs which are already happening. I have seen, at least in last 1 year, India-Norwegian JVs happening every now and then. So, there's a good amount of knowledge transfer, etc., which is always happening. So, I'm sure we'll be able to address all that easily compared to what we think that this is a new sector and it will be difficult for us to handle.
Yeah, I think if you see the entire hydrogen value chain, so the component till electrolyzer, that is already very well proven. All component we are making, and downstream of the electrolyzer, when we produce hydrogen, then how we are storing and how we are using. So in that sector also, a lot of oil and gas companies are already handling hydrogen. They know how to handle the hydrogen, and the same thing will remain. Only the difference is coming like where more innovation, where most cost reduction is required, is the electrolyzer part. How we can improve the electrolyzer efficiency, how we can reduce the cost of electrolyzer. This is one area. And second area is especially the transportation of hydrogen or storage of hydrogen, because whatever hydrogen plants are existing presently across the globe, those are mostly at user point, and those are based on the SMR technology. There it is being made by the natural gas and all those things. So they are continuously producing hydrogen and using. So there is no need to store such a long volume or such a heavy volume of the hydrogen. So going forward, the more innovation will be required, maybe on the electrolyzer part, maybe on the hydrogen storage, dispensing and transportation part.
So just a point on customer insight, right? So I think the case has been made that this is not rocket science. This is something that has been in use for a while. It's going to find expanded usage. But there are going to be new customer segments that come in as far as green hydrogen is concerned. So if you look at metals or heavy transportation, these are new fuel types. And therefore, as the supply side ecosystem, I think just demonstrating a state of readiness, and be it technology, be it quality, etc., but engaging and understanding and assuring the end use customer that the Indian manufacturing ecosystem is ready for the same would be very helpful. So it's just a bit of customer insight, customer centricity that I would emphasize.
So thanks so much. I'll just share two key takeaways for all of us from what I heard. I think one is, the biggest challenge probably in this is going to be how fast can we scale up and get that capacity created. So I think for many of us here who are saying we are struggling with growth in our existing businesses, and connecting to what Shiv was saying in the morning, step back, see what capabilities you may have to get into this value chain where some of your friends may already be doing it but may not be able to scale it up as fast as the industry will require once it gets going. So I think look at your strengths and how you can bring it to this new chain if you're not already in this chain. I think second, and probably the biggest shift for many of us sitting here will be how do you do it at cost, but do it at quality, right? I think that is one big shift that we have to be able to make for this to be successful. This is, one accident away from being killed before it starts, right? That's how this industry works. And I think that the quality focus, even as you try to push costs down, is probably the one biggest change we'll have to do in how we operate for many of us in the sector. So,
only your last point, you said, do in time also.
Yes.
By the way, Rohit, we have been demonstrating how the value chain can be seamless with this mic, and the end consumer always wanting something else, his own mic.
I've been eyeing at those mics for a long time and saying, hopefully someone will pick those up.
So this was a live demonstration of how we plan a logistic thing and the end consumer wants something else. So we can open to the audience for questions, and I'm sure a lot of you would be having questions for the panels. Please.
See, it's a very interesting subject, what you have discussed today, but I am too much worried about the quality in this country. Like especially all the solar project, I want these panelists to audit what solar projects in India is. Companies are ready to invest money in R&D innovation, we did a lot of. But in solar cable, 80%, minimum talking or maybe more, is of non-standard. The manufacturers give it TV certified, the consumer also knows. And if we are talking about the high technology of hydrogen, but in India, the biggest challenge is of the quality. There are companies here who make quality, but being a customer as a like EPC contractor or the government on L1 policy, the quality of cable is going down. And because I'm doing this one business, there may be many more business, even in transformer, many more business electrical standards in India are becoming the lowest in the world now. So how are we going to challenge this?
We already discussed about the standardization part, and I believe we can.
No, I think that's where the industry need to pitch in and put the standards in place. Like Kapil and Mr. Tiwari said, that electrolysis process is happening for ages, right? We are studied in the schools. We are implementing in each power plant. There's small scale plant. Now we're talking about a slightly bigger scale. Now, the only one part which I was trying to highlight, when the hydrogen production is happening now conventionally, it's in the refineries of fertilizers, which is governed by their own standard, like refineries having OISD standards, and again, fertilizer again governed by certain standards. When we are talking about production of green hydrogen, if it is getting merged with the power plants, like you said, so the standard and safety need to be taken care. I think that's the one area where industry is already pitching to the government, and globally also the standards has been being discussed. Once the standardization is done, so again, I think each power plant, whether it's a solar or anything, need to be certified by the inspection agencies, which is independent, and by the government agencies. I believe they're taking care that all the things have been done at par, and there's no risk. This is a way we can look into.
This TU certified they write, and 80% is not as per TU certified. You can find the raw material which is used in solar cable. How much production or import of this raw material happen, and how much solar cable sold in India, you will get about exit result is what. So this is a big challenge is happening in this. We all here remember this electrical industry. We are playing with the safety of the people and life of the project. Solar cable original life should be of 25 years, but whatever the cable used in India, you will see after 5 years the output will come down. This is a big challenge, and same thing happening in many more this standard. Standard is there, but are we following? That's a big challenge.
So, yeah, you want to say?
No, I would not like to speak just on the possibly the DC solar cables, what you just spoke, 4 or 6 mm square, but take an example, quality on a larger perspective. First, we really need to define quality as well as the standards required for doing everything. Those are in a position, I would say many of these are already defined, and bodies like IMA have been playing key role in all that. What I would just say, by a natural human phenomena, as Indians, we are always cautious when we are exporting something. And hydrogen places an opportunity where we can be a net energy exporter, because Europe and Japan is keenly looking at us as an exporter of green hydrogen, and we know what to make a good quality product when we are exporting. So this is just a natural phenomena can play a role. I am not saying, and don't quote me, that I'm anyway saying that for domestic consumption, we should compromise on quality. It will be difficult to talk on a smaller scale. So let's talk some bigger numbers. So, I would say India as a country, we take 5 million metric tons as a target. So each kg of hydrogen at presently, you need anywhere between 55 to 60 units of renewable power. So that's the electrolysis efficiency what we define. And each kg of hydrogen production roughly needs a DO water of around 10 liters. 9 to 10 liters. So those are two major components in the whole thing. So when we talk of 5 million metric tons, we are talking roughly around 100 gigawatt of round-the-clock renewable power. 100 gigawatt of round-the-clock is nearly around 400 gigawatt of intermittent power. 5 million metric tons is nearly about 50 billion liters of water. So, we really need to be cognizant of these facts when we are speaking on how the whole in 10 years we will see, because when we talk of these ancillaries, 50 billion tons of DO water, and look at the amount of SWRO industry which will grow. Where would you get the water from? It's the sea, and you really need to do desalination if you are building those kind of hydrogen plants. So there is a big opportunity which lies if we look at the bigger picture in terms of all these numbers. So I'm sure.
Isn't that counterproductive? Because if you don't have this ratio favorable, what are we trying to do here today, right? We're trying to consume more power, whether it's electrification of vehicles. So as we grow as an economy, your per capita consumption of power goes up, your manufacturing is going up, overall your power consumption goes up, and then you're electrifying the vehicles. Where is all this power going to come from? So unless the ratio is favorable, I really don't see why why we are all also excited about this.
I'll try to reply your question. So you have raised very valid point, because if I want to use hydrogen for producing the power, okay. So we call it P2P uses case. So in that case, what happens that your round trip efficiency remains only 33%. So why you talk about why we should go for green hydrogen. So reason for going to green hydrogen are 2-3. First thing is like our colleague, our friend has already mentioned that people are trying to do the decarbonization of the industry, okay? And there are certain sectors which are very hard to abate CO2. Like there, I cannot use directly the renewable energy for CO2 reduction. Examples are like steel making, maybe the cement making. There we don't have opportunity to directly use the electrical power. So there we are already using fossil fuel like coal or natural gas. So we want to replace those coal or natural gas with hydrogen, and thereby we want to reduce the CO2. Third use case is like in refinery and fertilizer sector, where we are using hydrogen from natural gas, which is being made from natural gas. So there again CO2 emission is taking place. So there we want to use this green hydrogen so that I can reduce the CO2 footprint. Third, if I'll talk about the power part, then what is happening that today we are talking about battery storage system. So these battery storage system are viable maybe when your storage requirement is 3 hour, 4 hour. But when we are talking of say 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030, So you think over the grid part, how the grid will behave, because these renewable power are not the dispatchable power, okay? These are intermittent in nature. So when we talk about long duration energy storage, so if I'll talk about long duration energy storage, so in those solutions, you will not get that type of round trip efficiency, but you have to go for this type of option like hydrogen storage, like gravity storage, mechanical storage. So in all these storage options, your round trip efficiency will be very low. But because you need 24/7 power, whereas your wind and solar power is intermittent, so to make those power as a dispatchable and firm power, you will require this type of long duration storage. So our view is that the first use of hydrogen may be in near term, maybe for power to gas application, wherein we will be using directly hydrogen as a feedstock in fertilizer making, or maybe for refinery, or maybe for hard to abate sector of cement and steel making. And going forward, when the renewable ratio, or when the renewable power in grid will increase, and when we will require long duration storage, in those situations we will be using hydrogen as a storage also. We are also talking of co-firing ammonia in thermal power plant. We are also talking of using hydrogen in fuel cell for generating power. We are also talking of using green hydrogen for using in the gas turbine. Please mind it. There the conversion efficiency is very, very low. But why people are talking? Because if I'll talk about ammonia co-firing, so mostly ammonia co-firing projects are going on in Japan, because they don't have coal, they don't have gas. So if they have to import coal or gas, then they will try to import ammonia, and at the same time they will also try to reduce the CO2 footprint. So that is the logic.
I think, he tried to address, but, why this green is, spoken. One, definitely the decarbonization. The second, I think, he tried to answer, but the major point is energy independence. We don't have any, good amount of fossil fuels. Our majority of the power plants are shut because we don't have the gas. The quality of coal is also not good. Again, we were reading in the news, right? There might be crisis because of the lack of coal. Again, So again, I think why, India as a country is moving, that's one of my personal thinking, that we are looking at a long term. It's like a marathon, it's not a sprint. We are looking at energy independence. We have abundance of renewable sources, which, we are not dependent on anyone. The solar and wind is going to stay. We have a lot of water because we are next to the seashore. The three sides of India is, there. And again, yes, in the future, we may have to look into the desalination and other stuff. Like Kapil said, there's a massive requirement of water. So again, if tomorrow, like Russia-Ukraine war is happening, right? Yes, you can always go for cheap or free or something. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. Can we survive without energy? So one of the major motives in the long run is to become energy independent, or Atmanirbhar on the energy side also, not only in the manufacturing. So that's what is driving towards all these discussions. Most of the countries are trying to do that. And second, definitely, there are some challenges on the RTC power, which we are speaking. Again, battery solutions are going to evolve. We are making already big move, I never saw 1 gigawatt tender getting awarded across the globe, So yes, the people are talking. We are making very good moves in the industry side also. Once the battery solutions are going to be there, the RTC power is going to be there. But right now there are some challenges, so we'll see how that will shape out. Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Now everyone is talking about the green hydrogen, no matter it is public sector or private sector unit. But hydrogen production cost today through SMR or through similar technology is very, very much less than the green hydrogen. So my question is, how much is the readiness of industries to accept this technology and implement, and how faster it would be, rather than, keeping the cost factor aside?
Yeah, very valid question. And that's why in the initial talk I have mentioned about what should be the real cost of green hydrogen. because you see cost of green hydrogen is yet to be discovered. Okay, when we talk of gray hydrogen cost, which is being said that it is $1.5 or less than $2 per kg. So that gray hydrogen cost is at what cost of natural gas? Because if you will see, many industries are using RLNG, which is at say $30 per million BTU or $40 per million BTU. So if some industry is using natural gas with a cost of $30 or $40 per million BTU, then in that case, the cost of hydrogen with the $4 also could be a competitive option. This is number one. Number two, whatever cost is being estimated today, those are at a very high level cost of the electrolyzer. Because as I mentioned that globally we have only 500 megawatt of electrolyzer capacity installed. We have around 8 gigawatt per year of electrolyzer production capacity. But once we are talking of achieving 134 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity by 2030, then in that case I'll require an electrolyzer production capacity of more than 60 gigawatt per year. What it means ki I have to increase the electrolyzer production capacity by 5 to 6 times. So what we expect that when economy of scale will increase, when my electrolyzer cost will come down to less than say $400 per kilowatt, then in that case whatever green hydrogen is there, that cost will compete with gray hydrogen also. This is the cost part. And the second driver is, as I mentioned, that people are talking of using green hydrogen for a purpose of decarbonizing, because all industries are taking a target of reducing CO2 emission or becoming the carbon neutral. So for becoming the carbon neutral, they have to pay a little premium during the initial days till the technology matures and till the cost of green hydrogen comes down.
I think your question was whether industry is ready also, right? That's what you asked.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
how much is their readiness and how faster it will get implemented into the
So
industry?
just to answer these 2 points, industry is ready, right? Electrolysis process is happening since so many decades. In each of the power plants, there are few hundred kilowatt units are already there. So from the technology perspective, like the panelists already said, some of the panelists, it's not a challenge. There are different new technologies are coming, but let's not talk that how that they will evolve. But yeah, so the alkaline and PEM technology is already there, so they are ready. Industry is also ready. The question is only the cost part. That's why Government of India is already working. We are expecting mandate coming up to support. It's like the renewable industry initially have this viability gap funding. But beyond a point, when it become competitive, the cost parity happen, that funding gone. I think for the initial phase, this mandate, which is expected to be in the refinery and fertilizer sector, is going to come soon. So once that will happen, this industry will pick up. Over a period of time, like if you see the solar prices has dropped from 18 rupees to 2 rupees, 2.5 rupees you can say. So we are expecting, the same thing is going to happen in the green hydrogen. It is a mixture of 2 components. One is power, second is electrolyzers. The power cost again is not going to stay at this level, it is going to go further down. Electrolyzer again, no one has made it to that scale. So there's no supply chain. There's no technology involvement. If the solar panel used to be 100 kilowatt, now we are talking 100 watt peak, now we're talking about 600, 700 watt peak. The kind of scale, bifacial, the technologies, everything is going to happen in electrolyzers also. So those factors are going to bring the cost parity in next 5 to 7 year or 8 year, we don't know that. This will depend upon the way the demand and supply is going to come up, and the countries and industry is going to pick it up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is with reference to on energy end use customers, right? I think they are very seized of the fact that they need to evaluate options for clean energy. This is driven by their license to operate in end markets, right? So if we take textiles, exports threatened by CBAM, where there will be a cost that is imposed. Similarly, steel, right? So 2 aspects. One, export compliance to clean energy norms. Secondly, the emergence of a carbon market in India, right? So the EU has an emission trading scheme where carbon credits trade at $100 to the ton. We expect that to come. I mean, there'll be a progression, but you will see a carbon-adjusted business case or an investment case for evaluating the switch. And that will play an accelerator in addition to all the points that the panelists have mentioned. So therefore, there is an ecosystem which is across both demand and supply side, which will provide for adoption of cleaner energy types, including green hydrogen.
So thanks. I think we'll close here. The idea of the session was to ensure that you understand what's at play. Maybe all your questions are not answered, but hopefully we have left enough questions on your mind to go back and think about what you will do. I think 3-4 things which I take away, on this is: one, the opportunity is large, right? No matter which way you look at it, it's going to be a large opportunity, and an opportunity where India will probably be at the forefront and not a follower. Second, the true cost will get discovered. So we should not go down and write it off just because of the cost economics as it looks today. There will be enough pressure from government and others to support it to get kicked off. Third, I think for each one of us here, important to go back and think where you can play into this segment, various parts of the segment. Some of them you may be touching today, some of them may not be touching today, but great opportunity for you to think back and see how you can get into this system as it scales up. Fourth, I think to me, quality and cost will both play hand in hand. This is one area where quality will play an important role. And the last one, I think just from a thinking perspective, I think don't think of it as this is not an energy source. You think of it a large scale energy storage of renewable power. I think that's the mental frame. Like we think of batteries for small scale consumption, think of hydrogen as a large scale energy storage, which can create the balance as we push for renewables in this. And hence the early adoption will not happen, or the adoption will not happen from what we do today, but will happen in industries like steel, aluminium, who are looking for solutions, or in CVs, as Vatsa had said in the beginning, which are tougher to green, through the traditional current outcomes. So thanks a ton. I think really appreciate. I'm sure a lot of them will want to connect with you and your teams to figure out how we play, and maybe over the coming months as EMA, we'll try and figure out how we can create some sessions in smaller groups with some of you and the EMA members to figure out how we plug in and play. Thanks a ton to all of you for coming here. Thank you.
So now we will not have any break, and we'll continue with the another session, which is perspective on new energies. And I'd like to invite Mr. Mustafa Wajid, who is also chairman of E-Mobility and Charging Infra Division, and Mr. Nishant Chaudhary from CESL to kindly come to the dais and take the chair.
Wanted JK also, no?
I'll just So you said you're already there. So I'm, just in interest of time, I think I'll request Mustafa to start the session. Mustafa, over to you. I think we'll just...
No, it's okay. Yeah. इसको कैसा यूज करना?
ये नेक्स्ट है सर, ये बैक है।
अच्छा ठीक। Shall we start? Yeah. Yeah, I would request everybody to take their seats, please. So we start. Yellarigu Namaskara. My name is Mustafa Wajid and I'm from Bangalore. I'm an electrical engineer. I've been in the electrical industry for long enough time. As you can see, no hair. So the new energies needs a defined perspective. I think we are running into a problem now because we see it largely through a technology lens. I was attending a meeting of an investment committee of a large venture capital firm the other day, and one of the questions asked to the startup which was presenting its case was, how will your business get affected if China invades Taiwan? Now, how do you answer a question like that? So we can probably all go home. And so many new things and unpredictable things are happening. At the same time, I would request everybody to remember that 150 years ago, we didn't have electricity. Neither did we have automobiles. Just think about it, because that's the fact. It's not debatable. It's a recorded history. Okay, so we need to keep a little different perspective when we are going into the new energy subject, because I think it's got a huge economic implication, it's got a huge impact on quality of life. And while there are many technical aspects, over the last particularly 8 to 10 months, we have had to change our thinking on this whole subject. So today we'll focus on just simple 3 topics. There's a context, and then there is what I would call as an energy trilemma. We have all been used to being in dilemmas, this or that. But I think here there is a trilemma. There are 3 very different things that are playing around. What are our options as a country? And finally, EMA members. Okay, all this is very nice talk, but in North Karnataka, when you explain a thing for a long time, the people listen to it, and the next question they ask is, Munde yeno, what next? Kya kare? Yen madana? That kind of stuff. So I think we need to touch a little bit on that, and therefore let's take the context first. I'm coming at it from a techno-economic perspective. I am not coming at it from a technology perspective. Let's look at some of the key facts. The global, and this, by the way, all the data is from World Bank, the IEA, and the Department of Energy of the US government. I did not want to use other data because it's very difficult to get data on China, as you can imagine. Okay, so $96 trillion GDP, primary energy consumption. Being an electrical engineer, I've converted everything into joules. Okay, so no oil, no million tons, nothing. Let's focus on joules, and that is 634 exajoules. Exa is 10 raised to the power of 18. Easy to follow, numbers are small looking at least. So our position in India is that we have about 3.2 trillion as GDP, and the primary energy consumption is there. Similarly China, similarly US. And what I'd like to now introduce is what I would call as an energy to GDP ratio. For every $1 trillion of GDP, how much energy do we need?
I've tried to ask this question to many people, and people don't give me clear answers. So I said, let's take a statistical look. Let's look at the facts. Now, if I look at the global energy and the GDP situation, that means I need 6.6 exajoules for $1 trillion of GDP. Whereas in India, we are consuming, or rather our demand is 12, which means we are way above the global average. How are the two other economies doing? Because we are heading in the direction where our comparison should be more to the US and China rather than smaller countries. The Chinese are already at about 8.9:1. That means they are far more energy, they are generating much more GDP for the energy that they are consuming. The Americans are doing a fantastic job. For every $1 trillion worth of GDP, they need only 4.5 exajoules. So how are we going to deal with this in India is going to be a major issue, and I think this should be the context which drives all discussions, whether it is policy, standards, quality, economics, what can we do, how can we build larger companies, etc., etc. This is a realization that I would request everybody to go into. I have highlighted it in red. I call it the energy to GDP ratio. Okay, this is a slightly different way of looking at it. Then what is this energy trilemma? Okay, until now, most discussions on new energies focus on decarbonization all the time. Climate change. All of you are aware, in Bangalore, we had boats on the roads. Okay, now, there's an old saying, "Wo jiska koi nahi, uska khuda hai yaro." So, in that sense, if we don't understand what's happening, we simply blame it on climate change. That's the safest place to put the blame, because nobody knows the answer anyway. Okay, so if you look at the energy trilemma, the first thing today for India is energy security. Decarbonization comes later down the list. I'm sorry, but I have great respect for the environment, but when I look at it as an Indian, to me, what is scary is the energy security piece. Okay, in that, the availability of energy. We have seen not too long ago what happened in Sri Lanka. Okay, yes, we are not in that category, I know. But जब बाजू के घर में प्रॉब्लम होता है तो कुछ तो सोचा जाता है घर में. I mean, कि क्या हुआ? This guy was doing better than us. So, what are those factors? Geopolitics. Clearly, now everybody in Europe, particularly in Germany, is going into panic. In the Meher Group, we have a very large joint venture with a large German partner. I mean, we keep hearing this thing from them all the other week now. The curious thing is, I used to talk to them about energy security a few years ago, and they didn't take it seriously. Now they've woken up. Okay, geopolitics, prices. Nobody understands what the hell is going on with prices. Okay, storage. Now, of all types, renewable, gas, whatever. Ability to absorb high costs. This seems to be becoming a factor which will impact on security. कि अपना सरकार के पास कितना पैसा है to provide a financial support. You have seen UK government has announced $50 billion worth of, or pounds worth of support, and so on and so forth. The second part of the trilemma is sustainability. Yes, decarbonization is important. It's important both on the supply side and the usage side. We cannot just go around trying to decarbonize the supply side. It's as important to do on the usage side, and there's a popular term doing the rounds called net zero. I didn't want to put it in the slide because I think it's being overused right now. The key issue is you have to try and decarbonize this thing, and that can only happen if we change the energy mix. And here I would introduce the concept of an Indian thali, where you have several dishes on the thali. Okay, this mix has to be very dynamically changed because all those other security factors will keep changing from time to time. We also have to ensure intensive electrification on the usage side. Yes, transportation is the big elephant in the room, but there are also other areas. It's not only transportation. We must focus on how to reduce that energy to GDP ratio. This requires an economic analysis and a policy analysis. Why is it that the Americans are able to use only 4.5 exajoules of demand or get that much of energy for $1 trillion of GDP? Why do we need 12? Oh, it's a bit like that surf ad, you know, uska khameez, mere khameez se safed kyun hai types. Why is that so? I think that needs a lot more analysis. Affordability is the third part. And in a country like ours, this is damn important. Because today, if I don't have energy, I don't have information. It's not only about light and fan anymore. It's about a whole lot of other things. Therefore, affordability issue in our country, it probably needs some fresh thinking. Earlier in electricity, we have always focused around whether free power should be given or not. If it is given, how should it be built into subsidy, etc. I think that we need to move away from that discussion and look at affordability as a very important challenge going forward. We are seeing what is happening in Europe. They have the ability to afford right now. How long they will have, we will see. But that's a different subject. So this is the energy trilemma, as I would like to call it. What are the options? First of all, we need to agree कि कितना energy मांगता है. How much energy do we need? It's all very nice to say 2047, this, that, and so on and so forth. But we need to agree on this, because otherwise we will be going all over the place. So for example, I just put an example there. If the GDP we target is 20 trillion and our energy to GDP ratio is 7, we will need 140 exajoules of energy. That's approximately 4 times more than what we have today. So what GDP are we targeting? I'm not an economist, so I don't want to debate whether we will grow at 6%, 7%, 8%. These are matters for other people to talk about. As an engineer, all I can say is that if we don't agree on that target and we don't agree on a energy to GDP ratio target, we will be completely confused. And we will have ad hoc movements happening all over the place. Okay. Second thing is we need to figure out this energy trilemma, but in dynamic mode. For example, Russia se discount mein tel mil gaya, le liye. That's a dynamic action. The world will be full of all kinds of challenges where we will have to do some more dynamic thinking to protect our interest as Indians. These must be kept before we come to this discussion of new energies. Otherwise, what will happen is that we will miss the woods for the trees. Having said that, what are our new energy? Some things are very clearly visible. All of you are very aware of it. Solar, wind and storage. I combine those because I don't think there's a future without storage there. The grid will get completely destabilized. As a power systems engineer, I know what happens when you try to put more non-dispatchable power into a grid. You will have frequency variations, you will have voltage variations, it will lead to grid cascade collapse. So we will need that storage with renewable. It needs to be drastically ramped up. All this talk of 200, 300 gigawatt is not enough. इससे बहुत ज़्यादा करना पड़ेगा. Okay, green hydrogen, we've heard a lot of stuff. A massive scale up probably is required, which is 10 times what we are currently thinking. क्यों? 7,000 kilometers का coastline है अपने देश के पास. Solar radiation is one of the highest in the world, in any country. Nobody can take this away from us. Our latitude cannot change, the ocean will not go anywhere. So we have to seriously think of how we are going to use that. We must go back and revisit the nuclear option. If I referred some documents of Mr. Homi Bhabha when he had envisioned nuclear in India. In those days, 50 odd years ago, he has talked of 60,000 megawatt. Today we have only 7,000 megawatt. There are countries like UAE putting up single plants of 5,000 megawatt. So the nuclear has to be ramped up. Please remember, and this is the important thing that all of us should know, that we have unique technology in nuclear. We call it a closed fuel cycle. That means we do not generate much of nuclear waste, which the other people do. They have to worry about where to bury it and all that. We don't have that kind of a challenge. The nuclear waste that comes out of our atomic energy establishment technology is the lowest possible in the world, which is a great achievement. Therefore, that's not an issue. We'll have to do nuclear. We will obviously have to electrify transportation if you want to reduce diesel, petrol, etc., etc. And therefore also reduce drastically this energy to GDP ratio. That's a complicated topic. I don't want to dwell on it, but I thought I'll flag it today. So these are our options. There are of course maybe other options, but these are some, I would call them as key options. Okay, having heard this and sort of internalized it, kya karenge? Okay, we are in such a situation that logic does not work. Because logic works only when you can make certain assumptions. It's like that venture capital investment committee question. What if China invades Taiwan? Kya logic bologe aap? You can't say. I mean, it's all unpredictable. It's what you call fuzzy, random, etc., etc. So at times like this, in India, our spiritual orientation helps. We have to look for inspiration now. And inspiration doesn't come from logic and mathematics, it comes from the divine. So I thought that, please excuse me if you disagree with the next slide, but I thought I'll do this because it's also relevant because we are entering that Navratri phase. So I think that if we look at it, let's take Shakti as an inspiration. Okay? Some inspiration is required. I decided to take this. By the way, I have done this within the Meher group, so it's kind of natural to me. So what do we do? Having taken this as the inspiration, study the image on the thing. You have the goddess Shakti depicted with a total of 9 hands in that image. I hope it's clear enough at the back. I mean, I've counted them, so I can tell you it's 9. So my logic is that I think EMA members need to relook at getting some new inspiration in this rather dramatic evolving scenario. Fundamentally keep 2 hands free because you don't know what will happen. Starting with that. Okay. Identify the remaining 7 as 7 business actions that you would like to do, and that will account for those 7 hands. Out of that, obviously the current business, which is the bread and butter and keeping all of us going, must be the priority. But it has to be consolidated and probably realigned with how things are going to evolve going forward. This is a full-time job. It needs the people who know that business to handle it. But at the same time, my appeal to all EMA members is to establish or grow a business presence in at least three areas in new energies. At least 3. It could be at a component level, it could be at a material level, it could be at a subsystem level, it could be system integration. Somebody has to work on this in the organization. Okay, at least 3 items identify karo. The other thing which I believe that EMA members have not done as much as they should have is to invest in startups. There are new startups. For example, the other day, my colleagues in our startup team in the Meher group decided to make an investment in a startup which is developing membrane-less technology for electrolyzers. I don't know whether this guy will succeed. But we have to have somebody who is looking at this issue within our companies and to look at how do we invest in startups. The other thing is, we had this presentation by Mr. Shiv Kumar in the morning, which he showed how the listed companies in 20 years have changed. The new energies will make a further change in the listing of stock markets and the market capitalization. Just like how the digital and tech companies have impacted. So I think it is equally important for EMA members to look at having some investment in publicly listed companies which are relevant for the new energy space, because you can't learn everything yourself. Okay, so this is what I thought we can probably propose at this stage. I wanted to slightly alter the perspective that we take when we talk of new energies and bring the economic and the energy security dimension into the discussion in a more stronger way than just focus it on decarbonization and technology. I hope this makes sense. Thank you for patiently listening. Devaru ellargu ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದು ಮಾಡಲಿ. Thank you. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
slide. So good afternoon all of you. Wishing you all a very happy Navratra Sthapana first. And myself Nishan Chaudhary, and I am here from CESL, Convergence Energy Services Limited. And it's my first this sort of conversation with you all. So I am little bit excited and little bit nervous. So I will talk about what we are doing as a CESL, and because as I am directly into the electric vehicle segment, so I will talk about the electric vehicle, and in this electric vehicle segment what we are doing right on the roads. So why electric vehicle? First question should be arised. So next slide. So it's all regulated by Bharat Sarkar, Niti Aayog, and then FAME 1 and FAME 2. FAME 1 is faster adoption of manufacturing of electric vehicles scheme. This is FAME 1, and now we are into the FAME 2. So transport is a fundamental requirement of modern life, but the traditional combustion engine is quickly become outdated. Petrol or diesel vehicles are highly polluting and are being quickly replaced by fully electric vehicles. Fully electric vehicles have zero tailpipe emissions and are much better for the environment. The electric vehicle revolution is here and you can be part of it. So lower running cost, why electrical vehicle is highly required on the roads of India. First is lower running cost, EV nearly 1 rupees per kilometer, and ICE internal combustion engine takes 6 to 8 rupees per kilometer. Second one is low maintenance cost, 90% less moving parts are there in the electrical vehicle than ICE. Third one is zero tailpipe emission, zero CO2, SO2, SO3 emission. Fully electric vehicles have zero tailpipe emissions, but even when electricity production is taken into account, petrol or diesel vehicles emit almost 3 times more carbon dioxide than average electrical vehicle. Tax and financial benefits. So if you are going to purchase electrical vehicle, all the state government are giving tax and financial benefits in different ways. Next one is petrol and diesel use is destroying our planet. So EV can convert around 60% of the electrical energy from the grid to power the wheels. And next is, but petrol or diesel car can only convert say 17% to 21% of the energy stored in the fuel to the wheel. That is a waste of around 80% of the energy which is actually contained in the petrol and diesel in raw form. Next one is electrical vehicles are easy to drive and quiet. Electrical vehicles do not have gears and are very convenient to drive. They are no complicated controls, just accelerate, brake and steer. When you want to charge your vehicle, just plug it to a home or public charger. Convenience of charging at home, simply plug your vehicle in at your home, charge for 4 to 5 hours before you plan to go. And last is no noise pollution. Electrical vehicles have the silent functioning capability as there is no engine under the hood. No engine means no noise. The electrical motor functions silently that you need to peek into your instrument panel to check it if it is on. Electric vehicles are so silent that manufacturers have to add false sounds in order to make them safe for pedestrians. So this is why we required electrical vehicle on the roads. The next one is, so what CSL is doing. CSL is Convergence Energy Services Limited, and it is a 100% subsidiary of EESL. And what is EESL? It is Energy Efficiency Services Limited. It is a joint venture of public sector undertaking, comes directly under Ministry of Power. So it's our leader, it's my leader and my company's leader in leadership matters, Ms. Mahua Acharya, MD and CEO CSL. So why CSL is on the road and why CSL is making dreams come true for the electric vehicles. So Convergence CSL has been assigned as a program manager to scale up the grand challenge of e-bus deployment as National Electric Bus Program to 50,000 buses till 2030. So we are directly into this project. We have to deploy 50,000 buses till 2030 on Indian roads. And next, Morth has identified approx 30,000 buses due for scrapping, top 25 STU alone. So Morth is Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Morth has identified that near about 30,000 buses are due for scrapping. State transport utilities, they have gathered the data from state transport utilities, 25 STUs. Next one is, this has been triggered by the record low price discovery and demand side expectation of the 5450 e-bus unified tender for 5 cities under the ambit of Grand Challenge. So we have completed this last year under the ambit of Grand Challenge scheme. So we have already successfully completed in the 6 major cities of India, in which the population is more than 40 lakh. Under the ambit of NEBP, National Electric Bus Program, 50,000 e-buses are expected to be deployed off India roads by 2030 through a demand aggregation format of procurement. I will show you how we are doing this, the whole process, in the next slide. Financial potential of the whole project. So what is the financial potential of this whole project? Between 20 and 30, the estimated cumulative capital needed for the India EV transition will be 19.7 lakh crore across vehicle, EV supply equipment, batteries and their replacement. The estimated size of the annual EV finance market will be Indian rupees 3.7 lakh crore. To enable this, the government of India has introduced many incentives, including notably the faster adoption and manufacture of electric vehicles, which is known as FAME scheme with significant financial commitment. For e-buses, CSL recently closed a tender of 5450 buses under a Grand Challenge program through a unified tender across 5 states. The record low price discovered as a result of de-risk contracting and several other measures have triggered the consideration of a scale-up program of 50,000 e-buses, which CSL has been mandated by Niti Aayog to implement the whole project. तो अगर आप हैदराबाद जाते हैं, बेंगलोर जाते हैं, and if you go to Surat and if you go to Delhi, and you see the e-buses moving around there on the roads, then there is a CSL behind that. Discovered prices, demand and the level of private participation suggests that e-buses are now viable. They are also indicate that going forward, the business model will be on the lines of mobility as a service. Why as a service? I will show you our project model in the next slides. As against the outright purchase model currently used by the state transport corporations. तो अभी state transport corporations direct bus own करती हैं with IC engines and then वो अपना service provide करती हैं. लेकिन हमारे project model में हम उनको क्या दे रहे हैं? We come to the next slide. So now we are presently working on procurement and deployment of 50,000 e-buses through National e-bus plan. Target for 23-24 is 10,000. Target for 24-25 is 15,000 and so on.
So this is a brief data which collected from different state transport utilities. So if we take example of one transport utility, say Maharashtra State Road Transport Corporation, so they have their total fleet size is 15,725. So they have total buses of 15,725. Fleets to be scrapped by 23 is 1,000. And fleets जो buses हैं वो scrap होने के लिए तैयार है 24 में 2,000. Primary electrification target of the Maharashtra is 2,000. Number of depots to be electrified under this program is under progress. So this is, we can take it as an example that huge number of buses are going to be scrapped in near future based on IC engines. So this is our basically model on which we are working on the ground. So what we do is we share EOI and tender conditions to the state transport utilities. Why I am considering state transport utilities? Because Indian government needs or required that there are huge number of fleet available with the state transport utilities, and most of them are going to be scrapped in near future. So the ideology is to change all the scrapped ICE buses with the electric ones only. So we shared expression of interest on the government portal and tender conditions, then subscription by state transport utilities. State transport utilities go with this subscription and give their demand. So we aggregate the demand and then we do the project preparation. Then it goes to tendering process, which is for the different OEM to participate and to inculcate the demand which is aggregated by the this expression of interest. So after tendering, when the OEM will be finalized, selection of operator is there, and there is the concession agreement signed between the state transport utility and the OEMs. So OEMs can be Tata or can be Eicher, can be Volvo, or commencement of operation then is the final step. So I already mentioned that we have completed 5,500 buses tendering process in last year as a grand challenge, and now we are in the second step we are again in the process of in the step of tendering of 5,500 buses. So DHI mandate for CSL for electric three-wheelers and electric two-wheelers, we are not only working for buses, we are working in the segment of electric three-wheelers and electric two-wheelers right on the road. So on 11 June 21, Department of Heavy Industries issued a corrigendum for the FAME second scheme. The corrigendum brings forth the following major changes. EESL has been appointed as designated agency for aggregating demand of 3 lakh electric three-wheeler for multiple user segment. So how, now the challenge is how should we cater this huge demand? So there is a robust plan with us, and we have successfully implemented for the Delhi state. So for the Delhi, it is already implemented. We are supplying electric three-wheelers to the consumers of Delhi via this scheme. So what is this scheme is, we have made a online platform on which consumer can select the vehicle and select the company also. And after that, they consumers have the option to choose whether he has to pay by himself or he has to select the financial institution. So in every case or situation, when the deals completed with the OEM, CSL will take its part as a program facilitator, and the vehicle is successfully delivered to the consumer by the OEM. So this is complete the role model. So what is the main characteristics of this role model is a completely paperless, cashless and system-driven e-marketplace is there. CSL to define the OEM participation criteria to ensure quality products are on offering and OEM develop enough related infrastructure such as showroom, service center in the city. OEM contribution, state and central subsidies and other related financial instruments will bring down the cost of EV considerably, making it cost competitive with IC vehicles. There is a condition with this scheme that if any OEM who selects to be participate with this portal developed by CSL, they have to be reduce their electric three-wheeler price or electric two-wheelers price by 15%. It will be reduced by 15% by the retail price they are offering on the showroom. So the consumer get the direct benefit of 15%. Also with that, consumer will have the benefit to free of cost insurance also, of 1 year insurance also. CSL to manage the entire system, ensuring seamless transaction between OEM and consumers, single window system for aggregating demands and procurement, ease of buying. CSL to collaborate with banks and other financial institutions to offer a special auto loan with features such as zero interest EMI, zero down payment, making an attractive proposition. So this is all done on a single platform, on a single window, and this is successfully running for the Delhi government, and we are soon making, we are in the process of making it for Pan India. So there are different subsidies. I think you must be aware, or you can see in the slide, central FAME second subsidy. So if you purchase electric two-wheeler, then there is a subsidy of 15,000 per kilowatt hour. It is a battery capacity basis, capped at the rate 40%, means it is a higher cap. Typical capacity of the battery is 1.4 to 3 kilowatt hour. And for electric three-wheelers, there is a subsidy is 10,000 per kilowatt hour, capped maximum to 20%. Typical capacity for electric three-wheelers is 7 kilowatt hour. For the state, there are different incentives, interest subvention, scrapping incentive, MFRR incentive, road tax and regulation tax incentives. These are given by different state on different rates. So this is table shows state incentive for electric three-wheelers. So we take only one example from this slide. So if we take the example of Gujarat, so Gujarat is giving purchase incentive maximum X factory price up to rupees 5 lakh. Okay, so we take example of Delhi. So purchase incentive is 30,000, scrapping incentive is 7,500. So Delhi is giving scrapping incentive also. So what is scrapping incentive is that if you are going to purchase electric vehicle in Delhi, and if you are ready to scrap your present IC engine vehicle, then you have to deregister your IC engine. And if you are going to deregister and re-register for electric vehicle, then Delhi is going to give you 7,500 rupees incentive. Road tax and registration tax shall be waived completely by Delhi if you purchase electric vehicles. And 5% interest subvention. What is interest subvention is that if financial institution is giving you the loan on 18%, for example, then after minus 18 minus 5%, so 13% effective will be on the pocket of consumer. So these are different incentives given by different states. So CSL administers a portal which allows general public to view electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, which I have already stated. CSL runs state-wise OEM empanelment for inclusion on the portal. CSL also provides financing option for purchase, and OEM facilitate the availing of central FAME and state incentives. CSL manages customer feedback and complaint management system and provide regular MIS and concerned stakeholders. How we manage all the show in the Pan India, that we have all the state offices are there of CSL and EESL, so our state heads manage with the state institution, and they sign the MOU with the different institution to encourage and adopt the electric two-wheelers and electric three-wheelers. So last is what we are doing in electric four-wheeler. So we are doing wet lease model and dry lease model. So we are supplying electric four-wheelers to some definite, in very definite numbers, to some definite central government agencies, because OEMs are saying that they have enough vehicles, they have very limited vehicles to supply. If you are talking about electrical four-wheelers only. So there is a wet lease model and dry lease model. In wet lease model, we provide a four-wheelers to government institution with the drivers. And in dry lease model, we are giving them on leasing basis, per month basis, leasing basis, and it is without driver. So most of the organization are adopting quickly this dry lease model. So this is all about, we are working on buses, electric three-wheelers, electric two-wheelers, and electric four-wheelers. So last is, it's all about visionary leadership. I want to share one incident which we organized Insight 2022, which was on 14 September to 16 September in Delhi. And when we are going to see off one of our senior IAS delegate, so when the senior IAS delegates and when we are going to see off, means Mahua ma'am says that I want to change all this government vehicles, means at that time it was Ciaz, Maruti Ciaz. So all these electrical vehicles by, all these IC engines vehicles by the electric vehicle very soon. So my question to you, all of you, after showing all these slides, will your next vehicle be an electric one or not? And last one is, हौसले बुलंद कर, रास्तों पे चल दे, तुझे तेरा मुकाम मिल ही जाएगा, बढ़कर अकेला तू पहल कर, देखकर तुझको काफिला खुद बन ही जाएगा. Thank you very much. Thanks all.
Come. Yeah, thank you, Nishant, for that. I think for the work they have done, they deserve more than a standing ovation. I'd request everybody to give them a big hand. Mahua and team, Nishant, all of them. They are leading the electrification of transportation in India where it is most required. And on behalf of the IMA e-mobility division, which I also chair, I'm specifically thankful to you for having come all the way from Delhi to share this particular thing. We were trying to chase them over the last, I think, 10 days, trying to get you to come here. Thank you so much. Yeah, with that, over to you, Anita, for the rest of the program. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Wajid and Mr. Nishant. It was really a lovely presentation and insights on electrical vehicles and new perspective. Now, before we close for the lunch, we will just have a quick update on Elecrama, the world's largest T&D exhibition. And I'll request Mr. Jitendra Agarwal, Chairman Elecrama, to kindly come on the dais. And meanwhile, I'll just request to play the Elecrama 2023 film, please.
As energy prepares to unleash the unthinkable and shape the future, the world is waking up to a paradigm shift. Today, India is all set to embrace energy to power its transformation, shaping its will to lead the world and reimagine possibilities. With abundant clean energy to realize India's idea of total energy independence.
आज भारत को ये संकल्प लेना होगा कि हम आजादी के 100 साल होने से पहले भारत को एनर्जी इंडिपेंडेंट बनाएंगे.
In sync with India's march towards tomorrow, here's a spectacular showcase of ideas and innovations that's all set to propel India's tryst with future-led energy landscapes. Unveiling Electrolyzers 2023. Be witness to possibilities shaping into opportunities. Come face to face with thought leaders as they don the mantle of transformers. Be at the heart of the energy ecosystem, attracting the best of thought leaders, policymakers, and change makers from across the world.
You are actually my family. This industry is our industry. And in our industry, for the past 5-6 years, we brought about a huge transformation. We are going to spend about 3 lakh crores under the revised distribution scheme. So that's 3 lakh crores again in the next 4 or 5 years. We are a huge country. Our power demand is increasing. It will continue to increase, and it will continue to increase at a rapid pace. And therefore, we have to increase our systems. We have to strengthen our systems, and you have to be ready. You have to be ready to meet all the equipment required.
Race up for exhibiting innovations and exciting business opportunities. Travel across a wide technology spectrum. Discover future market trends and how you can make the most of it. Explore the future of energy research and development. Experience revolutionary innovations sweeping through the global energy landscape. The future is ready to embrace the endless possibilities of energy. And you, as the chosen one, the stage is all set to realize it. The power is in your hands to script the saga of sustainability. Come, get together. The moment is now. The future of energy beckons you at India's largest energy showcase. See you all at Electrolyzers 2023.
Good afternoon, friends. Electrolyzers 2023. So there is a statement written here, bigger and better. So this is the statement we use from last 15 years. That is the beauty of Electrolyzers. This is probably the only show which is by the industry, with the industry, for the industry. We are organizers, we are exhibitors, so it is always getting bigger and better. When somebody will stand in my place in 25, he will have the same story, bigger and better. So, encouraging response. So, a lot of times I've been told, sir, it's not difficult to sell Electrolyzers. The reason is what the good work has been done in the past. So whatever we do today, let us think of 25, 27, 29. So we have to always think of future. So 95% of the space is booked, who's who of the electrical industry, Indian large companies, MNCs. Germany is likely to be the partner country, France, UK, Canada, Portugal, US, they're all interested in putting their country pavilions. Approval from Ministry of Commerce for more than 700 buyers across the globe. And this time RBSM is not limited to few continents. This year it is Europe, US, all the continents will be covered in RBSM. Confirmation pouring in from leaders of utilities across the globe. Great work is happening in WS. Widest choice of products and technologies across the spectrum at display. Though the president has already announced that that our energy minister has agreed to be the patron of Electrama, which is a big feat for all of us. So he has agreed to be the patron. We can use his name anywhere as a patron of Electrama 2023. He is going to invite his counterparts, whomsoever we wish to, from different parts of the world, maybe France, Germany, Thailand, Indonesia. It's not only neighboring countries across the globe. On our behalf, he will invite his counterparts to be part of Electrama 2023. And he has also invited EMA. Wherever he will travel across the globe, he will have delegation from EMA to join him in his meetings and go across with him. Thank you again, Singh sir. So, business and networking opportunities, this is what exhibition is all about. So buyers from new set of countries, I just said on RBSM, we have added Europe and USA. Appointment, this time we are doing a new thing that a local agency in every country is identified for identifying right buyers who can come to India in Electrama, non-utility buyers under DBSM. Till now, DBSM was domestic buyer seller meet, only utilities used to come. This time there will be a lot of people who will be coming from non-utilities also. I think Kabraji is the happiest person when I say this. B2B meetings with visiting foreign delegation. Already B2B meetings are happening with the foreign delegations. B2B batch making. So we are going to hire a startup which is going to do, which is an app will be running in the Electrama 2023, where there will be a lot of matchmaking can be done by the visitors, by the buyers who all are visiting there at first in its time. And we will have BSM, and Railways and Metro Rail has also agreed that they will have their senior officials to come for the buyer-seller meet in Electrama 2023. We want every time, again, as I said, bigger and better. From last 15 editions, we have been learning every time from last 14 editions. And 15 editions, we are doing further to enhance the services. Electrama Plus, interactive app, I just talked about it, B2B batch, making paperless registration. We're pretty serious about it, and we are pretty confident that we are going to do that, for sure. And multi-cuisine food courts. When you have a chairman who is 85 kgs of weight, so don't worry on the food, guys, you will have the best. And the chair of the committee is also 95 kgs. Accordingly, he has been chosen. So we have been continuously improving on the site, layout plans. It's a continuous process. I won't talk much on that. One good thing, what we have added, people have a lot of anxiety when they say what will happen at level 2. Halls number 2, 4, 6, 8. A lot of work has been done this time that each and every space, all 37,000 square meters are prime space. Because as an exhibitor, you always feel कि मैं कहीं पीछे तो नहीं हूँ, मैं कहीं आगे तो नहीं हूँ, मैं prime तो नहीं हूँ, कहीं visitor हमारे यहाँ आएगा या नहीं आएगा. Because this is an exhibition by the industry, with the industry, for the industry. So we are organizers also and we are exhibitors also. So we understand the pain of each other. So something, every time we will innovate something new so that people are more and more happy and you have visitor footfall all across the exhibition. We have enhanced sponsorship and branding options, adequate signages will be there. So, and this time we are spending a lot of time on the media promotion. So again, we learn from every time what we do, and you do something different and new, you learn from your past experiences. So we are intensive use of digital and social media for creating the buzz. You must be seeing a lot of posts coming on Twitter, LinkedIn. We are very active on that. Influencer marketing on social media to attract new set of visitors. So we have very focused way of doing the digital marketing. This time we have hired an agency which is working day and night on these particular platforms. Regular engagement through newsletter, posts, blogs. And in advertising front, we have chosen almost all the magazines which are directly related to our industry. You name them, Powerline, T&D India, Energetica, E-Mobility Plus, Electrical Mirror, Industrial Automation, and these are all Indian magazines, and a lot of international magazines will be added in this month. And we will advertise Electrama in all these magazines for next 5 months, till February edition. And on the premium pages, Electrama will be well visible. So this year, we are targeting audiences which makes sense to us. So, and one more new thing what we have started this time is budget allocation to the IoTs for their regional and local events. Not every time everything has to happen through the central leadership. It has to be distributed authorities, responsibilities. And thanks to DG who's doing it so capably. Innovation Hub created by Fraunhofer Institute, Germany, something to visit. It will surely be a very, very interesting prospect in the front of us in Elecrama 2023. And we're doing a lot of visitor promotion this time, domestic and international. So I'll talk of domestic first, that we are doing road shows. We have been doing it in the past, but this time we have increased the number of road shows. Plus, we are also targeting specific industry clusters. So not necessarily we are going to do road shows only in the larger cities. We will go even to the smaller cities and try to bring the name of EMA and Elecrama across the country. That every electrical person who thinks about this industry, anybody who thinks about power sector, he thinks about EMA and Elecrama. So that is the idea. On the international front, we have been doing a lot of road show, and we have been exhibiting and participating in a lot of international exhibitions, started by our president himself. He was personally went to Hanover Messe. That gave us a lot of motivation. And when he visited Hanover Messe, he came back, he gave us a talk that what all happened there and how we should be taking it forward. And that is thanks to Vipul once again for motivating us to do this international participation. Now, we've been to SIGRE, we've been to Power and Electricity Indonesia, Enlit Asia. I myself was there along with DG. So people are so motivated. And just to add on to one thing, All Energy Australia, what we are, EMA or Elecrama is participating in Australia. It is just very close to Diwali. And DG is skipping her Diwali celebrations in India and traveling to Australia. So that is the kind of commitment the IoT team is showing to promote Elecrama for all of us, thanks to the IoT team. So huge amount of work is happening on international promotion and participation. These are some of the pictures of our colleagues who recently visited so many shows, SIGRE, they went to Rome, Indonesia, Thailand. Some of the co-located events we have been doing, every time, as I say, bigger and better. So we learn and we keep growing. So Change Exchange, DVSM, Rail Urja, CEO Summit. So all these co-located events has been planned very well. I won't take much time because I think I can see the faces, a lot of people are hungry. But one thing, DG, you gave 1.45 hours for the lunch. Is it like lunch and sleep time? So I'm sorry, I'm taking on the sleep time, guys. So this is the organizing committee. Imagine, guys, the top leaders of the industry are working day in, day out to organize Elecrama for us. So this is the kind of commitment, this is the kind of focus as an industry we have on Elecrama. So looking forward to see you all there. My only request to everyone, friends, don't get caught napping. Please, सोते मत रह जाइएगा कि साहब इंडस्ट्री चेंज हो गई है, अब तो मेरा ट्रांसफार्मर बिकता ही नहीं है, अब तो मेरा स्विच गियर बिकता ही नहीं है, because the industry is changing big time. And we have to change according to the industry. Because we are the next energy to the world. We are all about electricity. The oil was the energy for humankind for last 100 years. For next 100 years, electricity is going to be the energy for the humankind. And we are all about electricity. Please don't get caught napping. Visit Elecrama, be part of it, and trust me, it will only grow you further and further. Thank you. And I invite our president, Vipul Rai, let me correct myself, Vipul Rai, DG, Mr. Rohit Pathak,
and Mr. Vikram Gandotra.
And yeah, please, sir. Vikram bhai. Yeah. नहीं 18 से 22 ही है. I suggest create. आपको 22 की रात को रुकना है, 23 को वापस जा सकते हो. अच्छा, शादी में कैसे चेक इन चेक आउट होता है? आप कैसे इनवाइट करते हो? हम वैसे ही इनवाइट कर रहे हैं आपको. my suggestion. Create an agency or a group within committee members to look for accommodation. Like Hanover, there used to be a place where one could go and get a reasonable priced accommodation.
Sir, it is already in place.
Okay. One problem I have heard is that the hotel prices have gone up.
Sir, that is we cannot stop that.
What I'm saying is that think of alternative places for ordinary people who are coming from outside Delhi.
Surely. Thank you for the suggestion. We'll take it forward. Thank you. So, please.
I'll take this occasion to launch the brochures of the two co-located event, E-Tech Next, which Mustafa Bhai is heading, and World Utility Summit, which Vikram Gandhotra is heading. Applause, please. We break for lunch. Okay, Mustafa, last word.
Special mention this time on the E-Tech Next. There are 3 tracks: new energies, net zero, and for the first time in the history of IMA, you are having a raise on track on capital raise. कि पैसा कैसा उठाना है. So thanks to DG and her efforts, we also have partnerships now with the ISHRE and the IGBC. Yeah. So please be there. I'm sure it will be interesting.
Thank you. We're breaking for lunch. The annual general meeting, which is a business session, will happen in this hall starting at 2:45 sharp. May I request all members of IMA, this is a members only session, to kindly be back here in the hall to enable us to start the business session by 2:45. Thank you.